You have to make a decision like right now. Do I want to be left behind, or do I want to grow with this system and improve where I'm at today?
As a new world is being built out, you have only two options. Build your own world or invest in a new world.
At the quantum level, every possible universe exists. So if they simulate consciousness, it doesn't matter.
The American dream is dead.
If we have humanoid robots walking around, AGI would have been realized. It can predict the future. It's almost like a prophet. You know, a lot of people who have strong minds will just start worshiping AI.
The future is not this technology. The future is our spiritual consciousness getting back in tune with the living systems of the planet Earth.
No cryptocurrency on Earth is used for anything except speculation on its future potential.
Is going to $1 million? Will crypto enslave humanity or will it free it? Is it too late or is there still an opportunity to get rich in crypto?
It's a newer technology, but I think that's really the most unique cryptocurrency I've ever seen.
Armando Pantoja,
The Tall Guy Tycoon,
financial expert,
crypto pioneer.
and award-winning innovator.
He's trailblazing in crypto education.
and redefining wealth.
You telling me that you have to think about being white before you speak? Well, this whole entire time in America, I had to think about being black before I say anything.
That why would a white man in power want to give up some of his power?
We're not asking you to give us anything, but at the same time, it is the role of government to create opportunities for its citizens. The most dangerous enemy in black America is not the white man. It's listen, you're not like us.
Everybody's getting degrees, they're realizing that it's not working because, like you said, they're late to the party. The elites have moved on to something else.
America is not offering a better quality of life. Is that not an indication of a failing society?
Ownership don't matter, it's control. And now you can get it through ownership, but you can also get it through other means.
But the question becomes, is it sinister or should it be the way? The elites are designing a new world right now, and you're just a part of it. I'm 19 Keys, and this is High Level Conversations. Peace family, it's 19 Keys. Thank you for watching High Level Conversations. We want to continue to be the best show in the world, so we need your support for that. So if you enjoy this conversation, if you enjoy the value of this channel and the rest of these High Level Conversations, please help spread the word. If you haven't already, please leave a 5-star review, and the best reviews we want to screenshot and post on our High Level Conversation page, and you will win one of many gifts that we have. We also need you to like and we need you to comment so we can be at the top of the algorithm. We're building out the platform that's going to take the culture forward, and every conversation is a piece of the puzzle so that we can elevate the consciousness of the world. Whether you're a small business or a big business, we have different packages that you can come in and help sponsor episodes so we can take things to the highest level. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if this is an exciting offer for you, then go to 19keys.com/HLC so that you can join the high level team. I appreciate you for being here, and I appreciate you for watching this episode. Continue to stay high level. Peace family, 19 Keys with another high level conversation. Where are we? Where are we in time right now? We're in this moment in time where most people are outdated and some people are updated. A very small percentage of people actually see where we are in time. Some people can see the technological shift, the social shift, the cultural shifts, right? And it feels that everybody else is in harmony with that same thought, but the reality is that's not true at all. Most people are just focused on their daily life. They're still enveloped in the gossip and concerns of the old world. And that old world is distracting them to see new opportunities. The opportunities are everywhere, but there's also danger if you don't take them now. This would be a time where we talk about generational wealth shifts, economic shifts, global shifts, as like, hey, do this, right? So that you can start to get ahead. Now is do this or else, that it will be too late. We're in this era of AI, automation, robotics, machines, quantum computers, blockchain. I mean, things that they're coming out with right now had first only been written down in sci-fi books. Everybody at some point in time was an expert at physics. Now, it is the main topic on Instagram and social media because we have computers that are doing things that even Einstein considered to be scary. It's almost as if the things that are happening now are based on occult sciences, and now science is catching up with some of those practices, showing us a reality beyond what we've been able to see, and only in that world of imagination. What my concern is today is as the elites roll out their plan for a new world, And as there's a friction between an old world going out and a new world going out, there's going to be clash and conflict. And during that clash and conflict, there's always going to be people who are going to get the worst end of the stick. If I study the statistics of Black culture and Black family, we're behind. They say by 2053, we have 0% assets. Then they said, maybe 10 years later, the brown community will be following. If we look at the top household income in America, that would be the East Asian, specifically the Indian, and then followed by the white family. So if we say that it's going to be a vast 6 years before the new infrastructure of the world is cemented, then you have about 6 years to start accumulating assets before it's too late. But if we're not in the same place, that means that we probably have 2 years, while brown families have 3, white families probably have about 5, and Indians have about 6. We're about to go through the biggest wealth transfer from the boomer generation to the millennial generation. And now we're in a time where they're talking about the beta generation, a generation born in the AI world where they can't tell what's real and what's fake, right? Drones and biohacking and lasers and all sort of different mechanisms that's going to be in this new world of this cosmic age as we're going into a more Aquarian world where there's a globalization versus just this localization of thoughts. So I wanted to make sure I had this conversation that is extremely important with somebody who understands it. That when the market is down, their message is consistent. When the market is up, their message is consistent. Somebody who can see around the corner as a futurist that helps us lead our thoughts towards the right strategies of what we should be doing during one of the most dire times in the history of our planet. Right? When I say dire, I mean in the sense of facing existential crisis on a planetary level based on pollution, and existential crisis based on the complete erasure of the middle class. So, how do you save yourself? You have a strategy, and you listen to those who are staying updated when you don't have time to do it because you are stuck in a rat race of the job, of the 9-to-5 matrix. So you ain't got time to be looking up crypto, right? You don't have time to be learning about what's this new airdrop, what's this new DeFi, what's these new protocols that's going on, what's going on in this world of science, what's this new quantum computer, why does this stop taking a quantum leap? You don't have time, right? And living in the space where you feel out of time, it makes you have stress and anxiety. So for me, having high-level conversations with individuals who lead the way allow you to be able to see a future that you can control. So you have the ability to manifest your own destiny. And today I'm speaking with somebody who's been all across the planet Earth, right? Giving people advice and insight on the financial markets, the economic shift, the technological shifts, right? And giving them practical advice. And even when it seems like it's all the way out there, it comes true. I'll bring you none other than those who know him on social media as Tall Guy Tycoon, but this is my brother, Armando Pantajo.
You got it right, man. So I appreciate you.
Well, I was nervous to get that last name right.
So I just wanted to say, man, I appreciate you having me. I've always respected what you do online. You're one of my favorite people. I've told you that. You've always been straight up. You've always been, somebody that a lot of people look up to. Honorable. So I just wanted to say thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. So I want to start this one off. I said a lot in the opening there, and that brings weight to our conversation. We're living in a world where the elites are designing a new world right now, and you're just a part of it, right? We're going through a complete class shift and a world shift. And a lot of people, when they're afraid, right, it makes them overindulge in things that take their mind off of being focused on what they should be doing. So there's a concept called financial nihilism. Nihilism is when you think everything is rigged and you start to think that it's just despair, right? There's no point of you engaging because it's already too late. Like everything is against you. Financial nihilism is the idea that you believe that the system is rigged and there's no way that you can win fairly in the system. What this does is it makes people take greater risk. So the world is starting to gather financial nihilism and it's becoming bigger and bigger. The Black community, though, has already had financial nihilism. We've already thought about the system as being rigged against us So when things like cryptocurrency came about, black men at one point in time were some of the highest investors in cryptocurrency, because we had financial nihilism in our community saying, man, the system is rigged, the man run this, the banks own this, right? So when that came out, we said, well, this makes sense. If it's gonna be a new system, replace the old system, I'm in. I wanted to take that risk to try to make a leap, because I don't think that if I go in the system, right, and play the same game, that I can get ahead the way everybody else can. So now that the world is developing financial nihilism, that means that everybody else is catching on to that same spirit, willing to take that risk, but it also increases gambling. So now you see meme coins, you see, everywhere, every influencer got a gambling deal somehow.
I study that.
That's because people feel like everything is out of their control. So in the spirit of that, during these last 5 years, as they were shaking the tree, because they realized, man, if black men are at the top of this list, that once it hit like 100,000, how many new billionaires would have been created? And that is an anomaly that they did not want to have happen, because that's not within the plan. They didn't create this technology so it becomes a wealth transfer for us. So I believe a lot of these things that they were doing was to shake the tree, to get black investors out, right? And even black media was reporting that, scaring people out of the market. And now that it's at 100,000, they quiet. But how many black millionaires would that have created? And even billionaires would that have created if we would have stayed in? So I want to talk a little bit about, right, first, this concept of financial nihilism and people gambling, right? And the world catching on to that spirit, and the truth in how we were early, right?
Yeah.
But they made it so fearful that people shook out.
Yeah, early on in cryptocurrency, I'm talking about like 2012, 13, 14, there was a lot of like cyberpunk type black people, and all of a sudden tech black people. We were in cryptocurrency early, but every time there was a drawdown, 2014, 2017, you were right, the media, and especially the black media, scared everybody to hell. It scared the hell out of everybody. And they told you that it was a scam, sell everything you can. They would put stories about how people lost all their money. And the people, of course, would panic, because you've been told all your life the media is what you should trust. And you are at the point, you got to remember, with cryptocurrency, it's new. You don't know who created it. And you're kind of like, already a little bit shaky, because you don't really understand the technology. It was new. So in that situation, it's easy for the media to just tell you, look, everything you did was a scam, you need to get out. So you sell it for whatever you can get for it, and you get out of the market, and you forget about it for 2 years. And 2 years later, you see it way up higher than what you sold it for. And a lot of people went through that because they let the media tell them that it was all a scam, right?
Yeah, and that was unfortunate, because I seen how we were so excited about it.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And I think it's some people, it was within their good nature, right, to say, I want to look out for these people. But they didn't realize that you have to be careful, because if we were going with a more aggressive approach towards wealth and building wealth, then this was inevitable, right? Because when you look around, what other way can we catch up?
It was inevitable. You're right.
So yes, you should, champion that spirit that people are trying to figure out a way to make a quantum leap when they're telling them that your wealth is 50 to 100 years behind the next race, right? So now we're in this time where the elites, they're focused on wage suppression. They're looking at, wait a minute, I borrowed money, I bought my assets, I want to continue to make as much money as possible, right? Which means that I don't want to have to pay the people more. So what do you do then? Well, that's when you go into your bag of saying, let's do automation, let's do illegal immigration, right? And let's do AI, because that allows you to replace that workforce, that human capital, right? And say that I can continue to make the same amount of money or more, right? While not having to pay people, but getting that same work output. So this is the danger we're going into now as we phase into this world of automation, is the dangers of wage suppression and people not being able to afford a lifestyle in the future.
Every time we've had a great technological revolution, you said industrial revolution in the early 1900s, the internet, and now with the third one, there's been a more collection of wealth to the top. If you go back before early 1900s, wealth was pretty much, like a dude that was rich would have maybe 10 times more than what an average man had.
Yeah.
And then after the Industrial Revolution, it was 100 times, 200 times more than the average man. Now it's thousands of, like the CEO of a company makes thousands of times more than the average worker. So what we've seen with technology in the past is that when great technology does come out, it makes the wealth gap bigger. And that's what I think AI has the potential to do. You got to remember, one dude will own an AI, the AI system or model runs the entire company. From the CEO down to the workers, the AI is running on a supercomputer and does all those jobs.
Right.
And maybe somebody like NVIDIA will own it.
Right.
You know, and then there's no need for workers. And that AI model will make the same as an entire company of thousands of workers working and creating that value. So that's the scary part, is that, yeah, it can cause a massive, wealth inequality. So there has to be some way that we try to figure out how to fix that in the future, or otherwise it's going to be even worse than it was during the internet boom when the wealth collected at the top.
Well, if we look historically, if we look at America, we look at the first workforce, of course, a black body. And the more bodies that you will have under your management, the bigger your workforce, because the more energy output that you can get over time. And then, of course, you got horsepower, right? Faster distances that you can go. Communication, you can send messages, right? You can carry carriages, right? So the bigger your horsepower, right, the more power you have. Then we going into machine power, right? We then have railroads. So now they can deliver import, export goods. Now you got food being distributed, right? Now this allows new industry change, right? And then as we're going into the development of telephones, and now communication and information can be sent. So that's disruption towards those other things. Then we get the digital age. Now we're in the digital age. Now we have a new infrastructure where there can start having digital communities and globalization.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of me saying that, you know what, I'm gonna buy from my local store, right? I might buy from Amazon, but Amazon might have got this from China. So now how do you compete with a global market, right? Instead of you only being influenced by the people that are your local influences, you're now influenced by a global world. So globalization has torn down the borders and created a completely different generation in a way that we think about the world in the first place.
Yeah.
And so Jeremy Rifkin, who was a famous thought leader and economist, talks about how the world is going from land logic, right? Because you got to remember, once we communicated, we had landlines and we had to walk to give messages, right? Once we were able to travel faster and got airplanes, we was going over distances of water. We built vast boats to be able to go place to place. But most of the world is water.
Yeah.
We physicists, we're 90% water. Our bodies are 70% water, right, at any given time. But we think of this as a land planet, when in reality, it's actually a water planet. The reason I bring that up is because as you go into a globalized world, you realize that we're disconnected by land, but we're connected by water. And as Mark Zuckerberg just created that W line in the water that connects the internet, Elon just created one within, I believe, the biosphere, to where the Starlink being able to give people access to cellular communication without having to have a signal, right? So to me, every time you get like a new frequency, whether it was radio frequency, broadband, whether it's the streaming frequency, right? All of these exist in different atmospheres. It's ways for human beings to be able to travel. It's ways for business to be able to happen. It changes the world. So now we're going into the age of Aquarius. This mindset is about flow, right? Instead of you have your own, think about it as a network. Why does everybody need their own individual thing? Why can't we share? The younger generation wants to share. That's why they thrifting more.
Yeah.
They think about ownership as access rather than control, right? To where it's saying that, hey, if we have one car, how about we rent that out amongst multiple people, so when you're not using it, I still have access to it, right? That's Uber, right? But we became so individualistic because we couldn't control anything else. So we felt like the things that we own was our will of power.
Yeah.
So now we're going into this world where we're in the currencies, right? Currencies are being thrown by the billions, right? Bitcoin is at 1 trillion at the moment. So to me, that represents a new world being built. But the question becomes, and I'm asking you, is what is this new world, right? I believe the information age has given us so much information but little understanding.
I agree with you there.
We may be stuck in the idea of logic, but we need to evolve into wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's more of the waters, to be able to flow in a world that's constantly changing. And as we're going into new changes, these currencies are flowing into new world systems, but what are they actually building out?
When I was a kid, I remember when the internet first started like taking off, I remember the news reports, the information superhighway they call it, and they said that there'd be an age where there would be no ignorance. Everybody would be smart. Everybody can go online and find anything they want. The age of ignorance will be over.
Yeah.
And it's even worse now than ever was before. It's because people have so much access to all this information, they don't know what to believe because they don't have critical thinking skills, or they're not trying to build those critical thinking skills up. So they're presented with 5 different opinions. They don't know what to pick, so they just pick one and then disregard everything else. That's why we see so much like, political, polarization and all that now in the world. But back to your other point about individualism and ownership is that, Europeans came over to Africa and they came over to the United States. They get here, this was lands of plenty. It was abundance here. Europe is a place where there's a lot of scarcity. So Europeans developed that system around that, like personal ownership, the money system was scarce because they grew up, in Europe, you'd have 6, 7 months of growing season. You got 6 months when you just got to bear down and just, store up. So the credit system, all that stuff they created was based on their lifestyle there of storing, preparing for the winter, all that stuff, scarcity, it's not enough food to go around. So they got over to they got over to Africa, got over to North America, and they're like, well, I don't understand. Why y'all not locking up everything? And we don't need to lock, this is for the community. Everything is for the community. And so the Europeans thrust that on everybody. You got to lock everything up. You got to have stuff that's just for you, And then that system became normal all over the world. But I think we're going back to what we originally were is a system where, everything belongs to the community. It's like that's where the car sharing comes in. That's where all this other stuff comes in. Because I think that's the natural state of man. I think what's not natural is ownership of everything. And I got a car, you got a car, whatever got a car. That doesn't even make sense. That's the reason why the planet is so messed up, because of everybody having to have their own thing, right? And so with technology, especially like the self-driving cars, that's all going to be gone. Like, for example, you will buy a car, you probably won't even own a car. You'll probably pay like a subscription service. Mm-hmm. You'll pay like to Lexus, right? So that means that anytime you need a Lexus, want to be at your house in 10 minutes, you just hail it like you do Uber. So anytime you need a car, it comes by, picks you up, takes you where you go, and that car constantly works all day, right? And you may stop somewhere, it gets cleaned up and gets whatever gas stuff, whatever energy they use. So that's going to cut down on waste, and also going to cut down on just pollution. And also expenses, because everybody doesn't have to have their own car. So a lot of these things are making us back to what I think we originally were, is just a sharing type of people.
No, I think you hit it on the head. Even the Hopi prophecy, man, they talked about when we were going to destroy the planet, right, with pollutions and things of that nature, and how eventually, right, it causes this day of judgment, essentially. And I believe that, we going to be forced to go back to more ancestral wisdom. The world has gotten too big for man to control with his basic logic, right? When we talk about quantum computers, we're talking about something beyond logic, right? Yeah. We're talking about multi-dimensional wisdom, right? Where people have questions, how did you do that? And it's like, this is beyond your senses, my boy. You know what I'm saying? And when you think about that, is a flower doesn't focus on growth. A flower flourishes, right? Because it has a regenerative process. It can continue to get those same results. And when a flower is not growing, it's not because of the flower, it's the environment. So when you see stagnation in spiritual growth and cultural growth in the people, it's because their environment is stagnant and it's detrimental to them. I grew up in Oakland and St. Louis. Those environments were detrimental. If I stayed in that same environment, even being who I am, I could not flourish, right?
Exactly.
So as long as human beings have to utilize technology, right, and biophilic design, where you're utilizing neural architecture, because architecture has an effect on neural responses. But we're not building a world based upon that. We're building dirty technology versus clean technology, right? If we was focused on something like the Kardashev scale of Michael Pichu, where we're learning to harness all of the planet's energy, right? Then we would learn how to become more resourceful instead of looking at things as just pure resources to extract. We look at these as life forms that can be regenerative to where we can grow with them. But we go to the land and just rob it. And then it has a negative effect. You go look in the Congo, they take the cobalt out, right? And then the people are sick, right? Instead of those people in the Congo having access to all of their resources, why is there slavery there if there is the most biggest land of plentiful and richness in the planet? That says something about humanity, right? That we would even allow that to exist. I don't care where you are. You can be in the United States, you can be in Czechoslovakia, you can be wherever. If you as a human, and we live in this globalized world, if we allow injustice to persist anywhere, that is an indication upon our humanity, not the people where it persists. Because we will fight wars for resources, but not fight wars for peace, not fight wars for balance, right? Not fight wars to save nature. And we become so out of touch with the harmony of nature that we losing ourselves, and our mental illness is continuing to skyrocket. And we're not focused on quality of living. What's the joy index of America? Slow. But we judge America by money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, that person got money, but they sick, sad, depressed in fact.
You know, I just came back from Puerto Rico, man, and like out in the country, they don't want, I mean, they live very simple lives, but they're the happiest almost on the planet. You know,
What part was you at?
I was in Yauco in the South Fork.
Okay, yeah.
You go down there, man, people, they got, you know, little cars, you know, just basic cars. They live in a little house. But they're the happiest, some of the happiest people in the world. You know, and you could go over there and you tell them, hey man, come to America, you can get make $100,000. I don't want that life.
Yeah.
And they'll turn it down. They'd rather live like they are. Like they don't even conceptualize what it would be like to live like that.
Right.
Because it's not like it never crosses their mind because they're happy to where they are. And when I go down there, I realize that a lot of this stuff don't really matter. You know, they're truly happy and you got somebody else. And I've been in it before, working corporate jobs and being completely miserable. Mm-hmm. But I make six figures, but man, just completely miserable. You know, you almost feel it like you feel a sickness in your soul and in your physical being from giving up some of yourself just to make money. So I can understand how people would feel like that. Just be happy in those types of situations.
On the island, you're looking at a living system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they have to be in harmony with the ecosystem of the island.
Out there, yeah.
Right, to sustain itself. Like I went to Japan, and in order for those people out there to, of course, stay, right, living stress-free, the environment has to stay flourishing.
Exactly.
Right? They eat from the environment.
Yes, exactly.
They eat from the trees. So they have to be in harmony with that ecosystem. It's a living system versus, let me just extract, take as a resource. Right? Now, if they did that, they would destroy the environment, and then it will bring stress upon the people. Then you will see early death, right? And then that's when capitalism is unsustainable because of look at what it produces. If America is the example, right, of capitalism. We're the number one capitalist country in the world, right? Great superpower. So we are what you see when a country completely takes on capitalism. Now, there are good things in America, but then there's polarization and extreme bads. Our homelessness is continuing to increase because who the hell can afford assets? Over the last, let's say 10 years, right? We've seen the rich will focus on accumulating assets. Now those asset prices continue to go up, right? If those asset prices go up, then how can the younger generation afford it? If they work a job, they don't have an American dream idealized for them. The American dream is dead. They don't know what that means. So what are people doing? They move into Dubai. They move into places that have better incentives for what? A better quality of life. America is not offering a better quality of life. So then they get people to focus on things like nationalism, right? Hey, be racist to this person. This person don't like you for this. This person don't like, because the only thing you can control is this individual identity. But what about the elites and the government actually creating a sustainable environment to where the people can live in harmony? Is that not an indication of a failing society? So this is why when I look at assets, I'm like, first of all, one of the only ways to win if you're playing this capital game is doing what the elite's doing. They're accumulating assets even when they tell you not to. All right, even when they tell you something is a scam, they're buying it up.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because I talked to Mike Tyson about this. He said, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, but I buy it. You know what I'm saying? Straight up, that's what they still do. So if we look at that as saying that you just gave a great example, you won't have ownership, you have access. It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. People get that confused.
Right.
A lot of the rich people, like we, you know, as African Americans, Black people, even Hispanics, we've just got into this money game really in the last 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in credit, like we just now really understood that credit scores were important.
Yeah.
Like I grew up, nobody talked about credit scores. You know, like
Even the people with good scores that knew it didn't tell you.
no, nobody told you. Like I didn't know nothing about it. I knew when I got in high school, college, I started hearing about it, and you got to get your credit score, but then, you know, it caused me to be better. But no, my mom and you know, nobody talked about that back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Even though it was out, and you know, the smarter people knew it, and the people that had more money. So a lot of times, like we've been taught, and then we got into this money game. We were taught that the ownership, you gotta have ownership, you gotta have ownership, you gotta have ownership, and then we started like taking that on.
Yeah.
Rich people never had ownership of nothing. They controlled those assets. Control is the same as ownership, except you don't have the liability ownership.
That's a fact.
Yeah, exactly. So that sometimes you control something, but that's a lot of times that's how companies work. They're on the board of directors, they own the shares, but somebody else, the public, owns most of the company, so they don't hold any other liability of the company. Like Mark Zuckerberg, he don't the whole Meta. Well, that's the corporation. It's not me.
Right.
Like that's that's liability off the corporation. But he gets 20-30% of the profit from that organization. Right. That's how we get confused. Ownership don't matter, it's control. And now you can get it through ownership, but you also can get it through other means. And a lot of times we don't understand that distinction. We want control, but control also brings liabilities.
Right.
And you want to remove liability like the elites have done for years, and you want to extract as much value as possible. And that's what they've done.
I think it goes to more so like man was granted dominion over things, not ownership over everything. Right? We have power and dominion over things, right? So we have that ability to steward things, right? And if you are in a trust, you are the steward of that trust.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not saying I own these things. I am the steward of these things, right? So I get to administer what they do, right? But the liability does not come upon me, right? So when we look at that, it's the same mindset we have to take, let's say globally. If we said that as a people, as a Black and brown people, let's be the stewards of this planet. That means that we would have to care about the pollution of this planet, right? About the robbing of the resources of this planet. We would have to take more of an indigenous mindset, right? But we're so stuck in the city job thinking we completely out of time and out of whack. We still operate off this damn 12 month calendar. We're not even in line with cosmic events. We got 13 moons. The woman is connected to those moons. You feel me? In her cycles. The calendar before 1928 used to be 13 moons, 28 days. So if your birthday was on a Friday, it was always on a Friday, right? Instead of this rotating system, or sometimes we have 31, then we have leap years. And then the last day was just New Year's Day. It was a day out of time, essentially, called a year day, right? So that would be 364 days with one day left over, which is essentially what we do now, but it doesn't make harmony. It doesn't create sense. So when you take a people and you throw them out of harmony, right? Because you got to think indigenous people live in harmony with the cycles. Hey, it's wintertime. There's practices during the wintertime, right? It's springtime. It's practices. So you got 4 cycles. If we're talking about earthly events, then you have cycles that are outside of that. You have 11-year solar cycles. You have 19-year metatonic cycles. We're so completely out of whack with the heavens above us, with the cosmic bodies. We think about our time as far as, I gotta go to a job. I don't have time for that. So now, instead of, we have intraday cycles to where your brain could be at peak focus, but you might have to go when you're not at the point of focus. So now you gotta go to work and they're telling you to start at 12. Well, damn, you're not gonna get the best out of me because I'm not in harmony with time. My circadian rhythm is against this. We don't step outside and get sun. In the time of the winter, you should try to sun gaze and get as much as possible because you're going to need that. Otherwise, you're going to have a vitamin deficiency. These are things that we understood as native and indigenous practices. So if you look at and understanding, what did the ancestors have that we didn't? They had the right time.
Yeah.
The right time.
And that's a good point, man. It's like out in the country, people wake up with animal behavior, or they wake up with the way the environment moves, right?
Yeah.
That you go to sleep when the sun goes down, you wake up with the rooster.
Yeah.
Or you wake up with whatever animal, birds or whatever, wake you up every morning.
In East Oakland, they used to have them roosters, so I ain't gonna lie.
They're all over the world, though. They got them in Africa. Roosters, like they wake people up all over the world. So you get woken up by nature. go to sleep with nature. So your body's in more of a rhythm with the environment around you.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why a lot of those people are happier, more productive, and they're clear mentally because they're in tune with the environment instead of being in tune with the alarm clock.
Right.
Alarm clock, if you have to be woken up with an alarm clock, there's something wrong.
Right.
Like, you should be able to just wake up naturally. If you can't wake up naturally,
I don't use an alarm clock.
wrong.
I haven't used an alarm clock in I don't know how many years.
Yeah, I don't either. I just wake up.
Because our mind is so powerful that you can literally just tell your mind what time you want to get up.
Exactly.
And it will wake up to that second.
To that second.
Our mind keeps time, right? Like, you don't realize you have isolators within a body that keeps time that will let you know what time it is. The problem is, like, they've done studies to where they've isolated people out in like rooms, right, in darkness. And when that happened, of course, it's going to be increased stress and depression and sickness because your body don't know what time it is. So now it's out of whack, right? Now that time is reset. And then they started to create artificial realities, right? These artificial spaces, artificial homes became offices. You start stacking up these dark boxes, you put these lights in there, people are stacked up because you are trying to cattle human beings for increased human capital output over time, right? And this threw people out of harmony. So now they're coming home angry and don't know why, right? Because it's not in coordination with biophilic design, right? You don't have a space that inspires. You're not utilizing color psychology to make sure that that's matching the harmony of the environment. You don't have plants in the environment. You have objects with sharp edges that makes people feel unsafe. So we didn't go through this vast period of feng shui to where we were harmonizing the environment with the elements, right? Instead, if we look at the environment today, it is now being broken down for a digital environment. It's not to inspire. It's not to create neural responses that make a person feel like more or that creates a calming environment. We can see that in old churches, right? You can see that in old banks. You can see that in certain places. But our world is no longer being designed for the human being, right? It's being designed for money.
Exactly.
So that's why we're becoming sicker and sicker, because you were to look at the ancients, you go look at ancient architecture, and you would see how they would utilize certain heights that would make a person respond a certain way, right? They would use, instead of corners that were of squares, they would use rounded corners that put your mind more in flow, right? This is an actual science that we're not taught in school. Why are we not taught about neural architecture? They don't want you to question your world and become a world builder, right? But if you go look at indigenous tribes and the colors that they utilize, right? If you ever had an plant experience, you're going to see a myriad of colors, right, within your consciousness. Why don't we have a world that's built based on human design, right? So that we are in harmony with nature that inspires us to want to become more. Why? It's because it was built to control you, right? You don't build a mausoleum for cattle. You know what I'm saying?
No.
No, that's not what you're here for. You're here to go through a system of grade factory production. How can I get the most output of this human capital so you become the asset that backs my dollar, right? I utilize the growth of that population, then I can put credit against that, and I can tell you how much we worth. But if we suppress wages and we make your skill sets worth nothing, then what is the dollar worth is the question. Because if the workforce and the human capital, if their energy is not worth as much as it used to be, because you can't get as much productivity and output, that's like saying nobody eats beef anymore. So what are we gonna do with the cows? That's how human beings are seen by the elites,
Yeah.
right? So I made a prediction 2020 about the new America is when the elites discard non-essential personnel, right, as completely obsolete within their governing body. Now we see Department of Doge,
Yeah.
Department of Government Efficiency, right? First of all, how is Elon able to get away with everything?
I don't know, man. Hey, I tell you, give it to him. Dude is smart. He was smart enough to put himself on the side of Trump before he, because I think that was a strategic move.
Yeah.
He realized Trump was about to win, and he knew he could get Trump on his side, so he got on Trump's side before that. You know how Trump is. Trump is going to go with whoever likes him. So that was smart strategically what he did. But I don't know how he's able to do it, but he is. And they're going to get rid of a lot of government employees, I believe.
Do you think that, so there was a recent discussion about like whites versus Indians, right? So it was an interesting dynamic where white men have the conversation, to me, in my reflection of it. You're seeing white people saying that y'all are racist against white men. We can't say what we want to, right? Essentially what I was hearing is they're starting to feel like black people, right? Or minorities.
Yeah.
Now, we know that there's statistics that show that there's a baby bust. So there's a decrease in population, right? So to about 2050 something, there will be a minority in America. Their numbers are padded by everybody claiming white, right? But those whites sometimes are under Asians and other different people.
Plain white is a square.
Right. Many people are white. So now when there's this separation of nationalism and they saying, wait a minute, I'm white, you're white based on color, right? Then we saying, wait a minute, it's not that many of us, or it feels like it. So W.E.B. Du Bois had double consciousness from black people. He would say, a black man has to think about being black when he goes into a space, right? How he's going to be treated, what he says, what he can say, what he can't say. So when I hear white men complain, it's like, what you all experiencing is what it's to not have privilege for the first time,
Yeah.
right? So your complaints fall on deaf ears when everybody else is saying, bro, we've been telling y'all this is our experience. You telling me that you have to think about being white before you speak. Well, this whole entire time in America, I had to think about being black before I say anything.
Yeah.
I had to think about black, masculine, Muslim, right? There's multiple layers to this. So this is the first time, I believe, white males are experiencing a lack of privilege and they having double consciousness.
Yeah, and they're becoming angry. And that's a lot of the sort of political movements out there is because they're getting angry because, I mean, from their perspective, if you think about it, they don't see it as losing privilege. They see it as I was here and now I'm here.
Right.
No.
Right, but that's because they probably don't know to articulate that because they've never been in that position. So
in that position.
It's just gonna anger you. Like, what is this thing where I have to think about being a white man before I respond?
I had to do that before, yeah.
Right, but that's what everybody else has to do, right? Whether it's a woman, whether it's a black man, whether it's a black woman, right? Whether it's an Asian, right? We all had to walk on eggshells this entire history of America. This is why you get a Donald Trump, because he makes you feel great to be white again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He's unapologetically white.
But back to that point, the white and the Indians. So I've always talked about that in the wealth standard, how the Asians have the highest household income. So what was going on Twitter was they was having a battle back and forth because you have Vivek Ramaswamy, he's in there with Doge with Elon. Then they realized that, wait a minute, both of these are immigrants. So when it comes to the visa, they like, no, we support the visa because the brain trust of America, right, is low, right? So he was saying that, listen, we got better culture, right? We focus on engineering, creating doctors, and going into the sectors that will be valuable in the future. Y'all worrying about basketball games and gossip. You feel me? He's saying y'all culture is the reason why you're not getting hired. So white men say no. At first you say, we don't want DEI. We don't believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then he say, well, if I hire you over an Indian person that I feel is more qualified, and I only hire you because you white, that will be diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting back and forth battle because what I'm seeing is they're literally experiencing, right, this double consciousness philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, let's get rid of DEI and do it based on merit. And then when we say, well, actually, we think this community has a higher merit. And then like, wait a minute, y'all not hiring us.
I mean, they technically do because they do have a culture of technology over there. So
100%.
if you grow up in that technology, you're gonna know more about
Yes.
technology once it's all said and done. And like you said, over in this country, we're playing video games, whatever. They're not like that. They study from when they're young. And then once they become 20, 21, 22, they're just as far as somebody with a graduate degree in this country is. I was in 2012, when I was in grad school, I was studying cryptography and software security. In my class, right, I had an AI class back then. It was like 70 people in that class.
Yeah.
I was in the back. It was me, it was 2 white dudes, another black dude. The rest of them was Indian, from India. Everybody in that class was from India. Yeah. And I was looking around, I was like, man, we're getting replaced in technology completely.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, man, that's crazy. Right. Like, you know, out of the 70 people, 65 are from India.
Right. Bro, so, you know, I look at things in an interesting way. So it's always been the same thing. It's been AI, right? The American Indian, right? when we had the indigenous American at first, right? So Naria say AI because A is numerical value of 1 and I numerical value of 9, right? So AI to me is also like this code of 19 if you see and you observe mathematically. And I know most people don't understand that, but think of it like this. What are our biggest issues? Now we're talking about banning foods. That's artificial ingredients, right? We're talking about replacement of human beings, artificial intelligence, right? We're talking about fake news, artificial information, right? We're talking about American Indians. We're talking about American illegals, right? All of this to me is the same conversation. Old world, new world. What is the replacement? So you have an old world fighting to stay in position. But the question becomes, is like, if you're going to update new technology to another one, we say, well, we're going to get the best benefit out of this. What were you doing during this time when you preparing for the shift, right? So if a person is mad that they're getting replaced, ask yourself, are you better than your replacement? Right now, some things go against humanity. Some things are like, this is just pure greed. Why do we need a trillionaire?
Yeah.
If one person has that much assets, right, allocated to one person, right, there's no reason we need a trillionaire. We don't even need $1 trillion companies, to be honest, right? These things become, we historically, you look at civilizations, you look at countries, right? Country, you will have 500 to 1 million people, you got a country. Now we look at Mr. Beast, he has a larger population of subscribers than the United States of America. The influencer becomes a digital nation, right? We look at Kai Cenat. He has over 500,000 paid subscribers, right? That's a country. So now we have these digital networks and these new countries popping up. Somebody called themselves a Bitcoiner. That's an identity, right? So we're taking on these new identities based on these new digital nation states. And so when I'm thinking about like the future of it, it's like, wait a minute, if we don't create a digital nation state within the culture, how can you compete? And then that digital nation state being recognized around the world. You feel me? So it could be people in Japan in your digital nation,
Exactly.
right? Because you are influencing over there. But the goal is build out a digital nation network, and then you also have a physical equivalent of that network as well, so that you have some sort of power and dominion in the future. Because the future is a blank slate. Nobody controls it yet. But if you only put fear in your mind of the future, then you're only going to produce what you don't want to see. So as we're going into assets, I want to get into now, the direct conversation of cryptocurrency, some of these new technologies people don't know about, things that they should be up on, and some of your predictions going into the next 6 years. So what do you see as the most important cryptocurrency right now?
The most important is going to be Bitcoin because it's already established. The president's getting in there, the president to be, I guess, and he's supposed to be push it. As soon as he gets in on day one, he's going to do 3 things I think is going to put. He's going to make a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and that's going to cause, and people always, for all the people that said Bitcoin was a scam, let's just say, I'm not saying that, but let's just say it was. So the United States takes their stamp out and say this is now a strategic asset. It don't matter what it was, now it's legit. Mm-hmm. The paper dollar is worthless, but it's the US seal on there, now it's worth $1, right. So once they put that on there, it's over. It's game theory is gonna take place. Every other country is gonna try to jump in to keep up with the United States, who's the leader in the world, and it's gonna cause Bitcoin to go up and also be more adopted. And 2 is one thing people don't realize, he's Ross Ulbricht. He was a guy that was on the dark web early in the days of Bitcoin. The government was trying to stop Bitcoin early on. And there was a guy I knew that was a software security expert back in my days when I used to do software security. And I'm not gonna say his name, but he was well known. And he told me the government approached him in 2013 and asked him to take the Bitcoin network down. And he told him, he said, look, if you would have told me in 2011, I could have done it because the network hadn't expanded yet, but it's expanded past the point of being able to stop it, so I can't do it now. So he told me that they asked him. So in around 2013, 14, the government was trying to stop Bitcoin because it was a threat to the US dollar, or they saw it as a threat back then. So there was a dark web website called Silk Road, and the guy was running it, Ross Ulbricht. And the government figured out who was running it, so they get him, and they give him 3 consecutive life sentences. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy for something like running a website. And they did that because it was Bitcoin. They seized all this Bitcoin, like ridiculous amount. It was 7 million at
That
the
was
time.
gonna be worth.
Yeah, and then they gave him 3 consecutive life sentences. So that was people in the crypto community is all the old timers. That was always bad. They shouldn't have done that. So Trump is gonna supposedly give him clemency on day one. So he's out. So that's like the government saying, look, we was wrong all those years.
Yeah.
And we're gonna let you go. So that's 2. And 3 is the taxation thing. He was supposed to on some cryptos, he's supposed to say that you're not gonna get taxed on capital gains. Now it's big. So if he does that, I mean that you gotta be very careful. You have to pay attention to crypto this year because it has the potential to change a lot of people's lives. With those 3 things happening, the risk is gonna fall almost to zero, and you're gonna have a window of about 6 months to a year to get in. After that, the information will be out and everybody will be doing it,
Right.
and your opportunity will be gone.
Yeah, I think that's the risk of being outpriced out the market, right? And not even just this market. I think that's going to happen to all markets because people are thinking about how can I afford a lifestyle in the future, right? If things become so outpriced as houses and Bitcoin and gold, they continue to skyrocket, right? By the time you get your money together, you can't own any, which is why now you should just focus on how do I get a piece of it now so as the value goes up. You're not buying Bitcoin, you're exchanging, right? One currency for another. And I think that that's a shift that most people still haven't had in their mind.
Still don't get it.
Right? It's a currency exchange. If you knew that your currency was going down and another one was about to go up, why wouldn't you exchange every single dollar? If I knew that the Japanese yen, right, is going to be worth $1 million to $1, I'm going to take every dollar that I have and buy that Japanese yen, right? So it's the same thing with Bitcoin. So it's hard to get into people's head because I think they caught up in the crypto part instead of the currency part. But when you look at it as a currency, then it makes sense for you to just exchange your current, right, assets that are liabilities. These are what I call liability assets. A dollar is continuing to shrink. Inflation is high as hell.
It's probably like
right?
15%. They just not telling us.
Your purchasing power continues to decrease. So how can you afford education in the future, right? How can you afford apartment in the future? If we see these things coming, and I know that it's hard for us sometimes to focus, not sometimes, all the time, because focus is the key. If you want to keep people down, keep them distracted. Give them shows about a cultural decay. Demoralize them. Get them over-focusing on their individual preferences instead of being a part of the world change so that they don't actually have a say-so on what happens, right? Even the political system. People were so enamored in politics during the presidential cycle, and now you see nothing.
As soon as it was over.
Exactly.
Everybody just went back to their regular life.
And this is more important time now to focus on it because you can help get laws changed that will benefit you. We got artificial intelligence here. We have companies that have been training models, right? There was a kid that was allegedly assassinated, unalive, right, by OpenAI. And they were saying that one thing that he was writing on was that 70% of the answers come from, right, information off the web. Right? Or I think he might have said 80%, and only 20% was actual AI. But the truth was that they were trained, right, on large data sets of public information, right? And it's going to get to a point where they call data gravity to where they are the ones that have so much information and training that they're Google, right, Microsoft, the open AIs of the world, they're going to be the only one be able to create these large language models. So by the time you get AGI, they have created a monopoly over the AI industry. Now, that's dangerous because of the implications that come along with it, especially their ability to quantify this data and manipulate human behavior. We already have it now. We see a release of all these new technologies, but we should also see if technology is getting incrementally better, we should see an increase, right, of human joy index. Like we should be living better.
Be increasing efficiency.
But there's no correlation whatsoever.
No.
So you have to be cutthroat during this time because I don't want you to get to a point where your children are going to be like, what the hell was you doing, mom and dad? Like, I know there was people yelling at y'all to accumulate assets. There was all these people out there making content daily. Like I've been doing it for the last 10 years. You've been doing it, right, for the last 10 years. So why wouldn't you listen? And if there's any time to listen, it is now because the clock is running out.
It is running out. And what people don't realize is that you only got a short window for investing, 20 years. And what's going to happen over time is that AI is going to start doing stock trades and crypto trades and real estate. And remember, the only reason that investing works is because there's inefficiencies in the system, right? Is that, like, for example, a stock drops because a bunch of people get scared and sell the stock at a loss because of, maybe negative news or something came out. Then you buy it when it's cheap and it goes back to the regular place. How you make money is an inefficiency. So when AI gets involved, there's no inefficiency. If the world is 100% efficient, there is no way to make any money. Not in investing, because there's no gaps for you to get in and make money. So investing as we know it in 20, 30 years will be done.
Right.
If you have assets, you'll be okay. But there will be no investing. You can't, like AI will have it so, so efficient that there's no reason, no way you can make any money.
Right. These AI agents, right? Those are the big talks. What's the one AI agent that helped push this own cryptocurrency and it went up?
Yeah,
the one that
itself. Two got together and just came up with their own crypto.
So when we see things like that, right, there's signals that tell you where the future is going. And that's why I say, again, information age, not enough understanding. A lot of people had they were early investors, but they didn't have an early understanding. Because if you have an early understanding, you have more resilience to not get shaken out. Right, and I think that's the key during all of the noise, right? Being able to interpret that data turns it into a signal to where you can get a direction. So I use the analogy of, like, if you are in a nail salon, right, speaking to the women out there, and there's somebody speaking Mandarin around you, they could be telling you, hey, my son just created this cryptocurrency, or he works at this corporation, I'm about to invest in this one, right? This is exactly how I'm about to do it. This is the wallet I'm about to do it. This is my thesis of why I think it's going to go up. In your mind, you don't speak that language, so all you hear is noise, right? That's how cryptocurrency is for a lot of people. It's around them, but it's just noise to them because they don't have enough education for it to become a signal to let them know that I should turn that into an insight that becomes an action for my next step in life. Somebody can give you the greatest advice in the world, but if you don't have an understanding of that language, right? And that's why we have this old world language versus this new world. So there's so many people that are outdated and they have not done an update. They have not done a knowledge refresh, right? When you have an AI, it has to go through a knowledge refresh. That's why I just say, hey, it's only been trained on data from 2023. Well, that's how most people are. You only been trained on data from the 90s, but you're in 2025. Right? And you can understand why you don't have any reflection or understanding of what's happening around you. So high-level conversations like this is to get people up to date. Let's do a reboot, right? So that you can download this information and now you can actually be in the same time period that I'm in. So when, you do trading, right? And in trading, there are different time frames. Right? It can be a second time frame, an hour, a minute, monthly, daily, weekly, yearly, right? Different traders trade at different time frames. Some people, they're long term. They might go 6, right, to 3 years out, 6 months to 3 years out, right? Some people, they're doing day to day. So the information that's relevant to them is different than everybody else. So the way I look at it is you have to know, right, the person that's speaking to you, in which time frame do they speak? Sometimes you speak in a, 6 months to 3 years time frame, right? The problem is when you pour, you can only listen to something that is like day to day or week to week.
I understand that.
So anything outside of that is gonna sound like noise because you're not going to take that in as an insight and an action. So sometimes I realize with myself, I would run old videos through AI and I ask, hey, how much of this did I predict correctly? Right? And it'd be like 92%. You know what I'm saying? And I realized, like, it's not that you're not right. Like Kanye said, it's just not right now. And you have to know when a person is speaking or when you're thinking and what time frame you're thinking in. Because we might say something in this conversation that's going to be correct in 2 years, right? Or maybe correct in 1 month. So I know you speak in a 6 to 12 months to a 3 year time frame. So if I'm listening to you, you're helping give me information to plan in the next 6 months to a year or 2 to 3 years, right? And that's key to know that if your mind is stuck in one specific time or is it expand? Have you went through that knowledge refresh? Do you have an update? Otherwise, it's going to stay noise and it's never going to become action.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, the reason why I talk 3 years out sometimes, 6 months, 12 months also.
You're a futurist.
So the futurist is because when this stuff starts to unfold, I want you to say, look, Armando said this stuff. He said this is how it would work out. So it's a lot easier to understand if somebody's already prepared you for it's coming. So that's what I think is really important, to stay on top of things like that, because when the things start unfolding, you got to be ready. You can't, that's what training in basketball is. And when I used to play basketball, we would train a certain, play, like an inbound play. It's only like 10 seconds left. And we would do that same over and over. So when you're in the game time, when it's 10 seconds left and you got an inbound on the sidelines, you're not scared, you're not nervous, because you've done this 10, 20 times before. So it's almost like a thought exercise, is that if you listen to somebody say, this is what's coming next, this is where AI is going, this is where quantum computers is going, and you listen, and 3 years from now it starts unfolding, you're not nervous, you're not scared, you know how to execute.
Now, is Ripple going to 1 million?
XRP, no. No, it'd be lucky. I think I put 10,000 on my page, but it's a joke. I don't think it's going that high. It could possibly get to 1,000 in 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah, but the short term, $8 to $25, more than likely. Because Ripple still, the crypto, the thing people don't understand about cryptocurrencies, we're very early. We're very early in crypto.
It's still a small adoption.
I mean, the technology takes years and years to adopt. AI was created in 1957. Quantum computers were created in the same time frame, like 1940s, 50s. The concept of a quantum computer was like in the 50s. And we just now really start getting a usable quantum computer. So a lot of these things are years out. Crypto, before we see it used daily, it's still another 10 years out. No cryptocurrency on earth is used for anything except speculation on its future potential. There's nothing being used for anything other than that, because it's such a powerful technology. We know that it's going to do something. We just don't know what yet.
Right.
But that's why I'm saying you're still very early with a lot of this stuff. Almost all of it. XRP, like short-term, $8 to $25, 1,000 over 25 years. And there's two reasons for that. Is because it'll be adopted more, and two is inflation. It will take more dollars to buy an XRP because inflation is gonna, go up over the 20 years also.
I agree with that. And I think that that's sort of the key. Number one, Ethereum hasn't performed the way that people would have wanted it to. My personal thing is, the reason I thought it wasn't going to do it is because of Vitalik. I just don't think he's a likable dude. You're not cool enough. So this is what you get when you have a cryptocurrency represented by a person who has no personality, right? Because if he was aspirational, if he put on a leather jacket and rode a bicycle, man, the price might go up.
Yeah.
You feel me? So I remember saying that on Market Mondays years ago, that you're probably going to get the most reasonable pricing of Ethereum based on true value. You're not going to get speculative value.
No hype value.
Because he's not a good influencer for his coin, right? So he's not going to give you no hype whatsoever. So he ain't going to say nothing, and then the price pops.
Have you
He's
ever
not
seen him in
Elon
real
Musk.
life?
Yeah.
I saw him once. It's kind of scary.
You know what I'm saying? The brother looked like he's starving. Looked like he been holding them bags, and he bought at the high.
Yeah, he looks like he's kind of scary looking. Like I saw him one time at Ethereum Denver, and he was in pajamas, almost like walking without picking up his feet. And I was like, man, this dude's kind of scary.
Yeah. So so we got XRP, right? We have Bitcoin. Gold has done very well. You know what I mean? I was looking at how Bitcoin and gold have outperformed Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And of course the S&P 500. Now, Bitcoin and gold has always been my go-to, right? As far as Bitcoin being the new gold, and then gold always been planetary safe asset that people put their money in to store value. And, we could possibly see gold hit 10,000. I think that's possible within our time. I think you could definitely see, next 10 years, $1 million Bitcoin, which is only 10x, right? But you're not trying to, and this is what I'll get people to understand. You early because your mother ain't invested, right? You go to the people who might talk about it, but they're not investors.
Exactly.
Right? When everybody is in it, then that's when you're too late.
Yeah.
Right? Every country hasn't even invested, right? We see Switzerland putting together their Bitcoin reserve, right? And they had already said that they're going to be a cashless society, right? They had already put it in their plans. These people are not just picking it up. They have a plan for it. Now, some of them are more radical, you feel me, like El Salvador, where they've been accumulating it when it looked crazy, and now they're up, and now they just happen to magically find all this gold as well. And they locked up everybody in their damn country, so now it's considered one of the safest countries in the Western Hemisphere. That's a whole nother conversation. But you also have to understand that the world is going to be creating new cities, right? New go-to places. There's going to be completely new, brand new smart cities that pop up, and utopian cities, right? So as people got money and they're searching, where the hell I want to live at in the future? This is where you see a Dubai, right? Because they're looking at their oil reserves and saying, well, how can we switch it up to where instead of it being based on this resource of oil, then we will have it based upon, tourism, right? Bring all of the influence here. Let's spend all these billions of dollars and make this the go-to place. So now the Saudis understand it. Dubai understand it. There's new cities that's populating. America infrastructure is so old. How could they even add the new world technology to it? I was at a CES show with you. There was brand new technology that never hit the streets.
Never hit it.
Healthcare technology for biohacking, right? Things that can predict, sicknesses and illnesses and treat you at home, right? Solar technology, sonar technology, all sort of different things, but that don't hit the street yet. Number one, they need investors, right? And the investors that would take a risk on it. Then they have to roll it out. And when I'm talking to them, I was reviewing their products, and I can make more sense of it because I speak to the consumer. They speaking to the investor. So a lot of times they build products for investors, right? And the consumers don't understand it because they're mostly doing B2B instead of B2C. And I believe that a lot of companies are going to have to shift their model to make sure they start building for the end consumer, right? Instead of B2B, because they now have the direct pipeline, the way the new global community is scaling out. Now, I want to go a little more into the cryptos, right? So what should people be looking for when it comes to cryptocurrency? We got Bitcoin, we talked about Ripple,
Ethereum.
right? We talk about Ethereum, right? We got the top dogs, we got them. What are some of the riskier plays? What are some of the more innovative things that people are doing in the space?
I personally don't like meme coins because I don't believe they have any utility. People can mess with them if they want to, but they're highly speculative. And you can, for every one meme coin you see that does 1,000x, there's 100 that went to zero. So it's like a big roulette wheel. If you want to play that, that's up to you, but I don't believe in those that much. Dogecoin's okay. Some of the ones that are converting to utility. But overall, meme coins, I think, are dangerous. But Solana's good. There's the one I think that has the most potential that a lot of people don't know about is IOTA. But IOTA's way down the list. And one time it got to number 4, but I think if they get their everything, their development team right, because they have a lot of conflict among their teams and stuff. IOTA you can use offline, so you don't need the internet. It's quantum safe, which means that the quantum computers can't crack it right now. And also, it's feeless. So there's no fees for me to transfer back and forth, and it's fast. It's a newer technology, but I think that's really the most unique cryptocurrency I've ever seen. Most cryptocurrencies are based on Solana or Ethereum. They're just, coins that are built on top of those blockchains, so they're all very similar. IOTA is one of the most unique ones out of all the cryptocurrencies. So I think they still have potential to do great things. I think they just got to get their act together.
Yeah, I think that AI agents is going to be interesting. In cryptocurrency, you're looking for narratives, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is a belief system, right? If you see a narrative swelling and building up, and AI 16Z, they always put out really great reports around these things, and they're following a lot of the AI agents, right? And I think that that's something that's going to be a huge narrative going forward, right? Building out an AI agent that can, instead of just having a large language model where you're telling what to do and you're getting reaction response, instead you have an AI agent that is automating responses. So to me, it's simply like having a human being that actually does things without you telling it to do, which is rare. So I think AI agents are going to be big. Personal AI agents as well, where people are utilizing them to automate tasks, things that you don't want to have to do, buying, even when it comes to, let's say like finances, paying bills and
booking flights.
Right, doing things of that nature. If you think about the best robot in the world that do everything for you, you're going to want to automate a lot of those tasks that free you up, right? So that's when you have AI agents that will be doing those things for you. And then companies can hire AI agents that can get rid of complete workforces. Yeah. Then you got AI agents that you believe that you can copy trade from. If this agent is doing a good model and they are having a 70% win rate, then people are going into copy trading to where they're saying, well, I'll just put my money in here, and then based on the amount that I'm willing to lose, then I will win that or I'll lose that. And I think we're in the age of automation, and I think more people are going to be focused on automating their lifestyle. Yeah. Right? Automating their finances, automating dating, everything.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then I want to get into quantum computers. Quantum computers is very interesting because every country around the world has to get into quantum computers. They have to because, number one, they can crack the uncrackable, right? Things that are encrypted. So there's not much quantum resistance. They say quantum resistance, but then these things are still theory because the quantum computers ain't tried them yet.
Yeah.
Right? So they were made with quantum machines in mind, but they still have to be tested because we don't know what Willow would do, right? If it did try to hack Bitcoin. Now, I was looking at the report that gives a breakdown that there's a way to update your Bitcoin wallet.
Yeah, there is.
So that it's not as susceptible to the risk of quantum, but Satoshi Nakamoto wallet is not going to be updated. So the race is whoever builds the quantum machine first will be able to hack his wallet and take that crypto. And that was saying that will be the trigger for you to know when the real quantum machines have turned on. Whoever gets his wallet.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you remember, technology doesn't evolve alone. Like, if I always give this example, I said, if you went back to the American Revolution and you gave the British jets, they would have beat us. I mean, we'd be in the British Empire.
Yeah.
But it doesn't evolve like that. As jets evolve, anti-aircraft stuff evolved.
Right.
And, that didn't happen like that. So as quantum computers start to evolve, we're going to have quantum encryption, other types of encryption. So by the time they do come to fruition to the point where they can crack the wallets, we would have upgraded all the blockchains to be quantum resistant. Right. So I'm not really worried about that long term. Because, I mean, you got to remember, if they can crack any, they can get into the Bitcoin, any other cryptocurrency. We got more stuff to worry. Everything's encrypted.
Right.
The banks,
Yeah.
So if they get into that, man, the whole society's gonna fall.
But they probably wouldn't want to tell you when they did it.
Yeah.
Because then it would affect them as well. So let's say China leads it and they get access to all of the NSA passwords, FBI, all these things.
They're not saying nothing at first.
Yeah, they wouldn't tell you. They would just monitor it, right? They wouldn't use that Trojan horse until they had to.
Yeah.
Right? So, but the idea of these quantum machines, I think that this is where you're going to get a completely new medical industry, right? Them being able to map the complete human genome and these cellular structures and model them.
From atom level up.
You're going to get a completely, a new categories of medicine. I think we're going to get cures. We're going to get biohacking, right? We're going to be curing things that we never was able to before. I think we're going into that age of immortality where people are trying to figure out, the elite want to figure out how to live forever, right? That's why people do NAD and all these other different things, right? We're going to get new neuro-enhancing nootropics, right? That literally have those limitless pills. So I think that it's going to be an interesting world to where you have to prime and prepare people before quantum machines are completely turned on. The only problem right now is that the energy issue, right? So America don't have enough energy and these countries have to decide on what's going to be most important thing. If you try to mine Bitcoin, right? You want to power these AI machines. You want to operate in a quantum race. The person that's closest to that is China, building out this so-called artificial sun with the fusion machine, right? So when we look at that, number one, I don't think we understand when this technology is combined together. We're looking at a lot of these things isolated. We got Bitcoin, we got AI, we got quantum, right? We got all these things separately. But what happens when they fuse together and that technology is compressed? That's when you get a completely new world, right? We are able to tear down buildings and build out completely new buildings in 15 minutes. We see that happening in different places. Like our capabilities as a human species is very far. But right now, we don't have a lot of synergy, right, of shared resources. So I think that we're going to have to change that in order for this new world shift to happen. Every country around the world is participating in this fusion technology, but then everybody's building their own at the same time. So there's cooperation and there's competition.
Yeah, but the speed of innovation is speeding up. And the reason why is because you go back, let's say 200 years ago, let's say a man died. He died with all that knowledge in his brain. If he had only passed over 20% to his son, then his son would go and build it up again and he would die. And he only passed over 20. We would lose, every generation we lose a lot of knowledge. But now we almost, all knowledge is kept. So our innovation is speeding up. So the things you talked about we're right on the edge of that like new awakening. When everything just changes, especially with AGI. The singularity, which I think we're in the next 10 years, that's when AI becomes consciousness, has consciousness, or either a simulation of consciousness, and it becomes smarter than humans. When at that point, they'll be able to program themselves and it's gonna be like a hockey stick, the intelligence level. We won't even be able to understand what they're doing anymore. And that's, I think, is gonna, at the beginning at least, is gonna give us like a whole new age of just like the world you talked about, where buildings go up in 15 minutes, you almost live forever, or as long as the universe is here. And you know, our health will be a lot better, at least at the beginning. I think that we're right on the edge of that right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that a lot of things that we see, like you're gonna have to judge societies by different metrics in the future. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
It's not gonna be, hey, this country has the biggest GDP, right? Which we currently care about the most. No, it's gonna be looking at the quality of life in these places.
Or the collective consciousness of that place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Japan was having an issue with suicides, and I believe they still having some, but they're bringing their numbers back down, right? So they started to install these blue lights, right?
Yeah.
To where it calms people down. Right, de-stresses them, and these were people that were jumping in front of trains.
Yeah.
Right, they have a suicide force out there. People will walk in there and get lost and never be seen again. Because even though that I believe they have a lot of beautiful things in their culture, it has to be updated in a way to where people are trying to live up to these expectations, right? To not bring shame to their family and society, and that becomes hard for them. So they're figuring out, how do we take that Bushido to where we're still operating off the wisdom of the ancestors and the samurais and the shoguns and all of that, but how do we update it in a time when this generation has been exposed to so much, where we want to keep our cultural practices and sustain that, but we want to make sure that their consciousness and their activities are expanded enough to where they can have a certain quality of life. And I remember reading a newspaper out there and they was focused on quality of life index, and I'm like, I've never seen a president in America ever talk about the quality of life index. Yeah. I'm like, that should be a primary focus, because that changes the legislation, that changes the bills you push, that changes your whole presidency. Where we're looking at, instead of your approval rate as a presidency, what is the quality of life for Americans? What is the quality of life, right, in your country? If you have an audience and your audience is unhappy, you're not going to be considered a good influencer, right? A good community organizer, because your goal should be able to, especially with the resources, to help people live in a more harmonious way. And health is a huge one. Right now we got RFK up there. We'll see what he will do and how much he can get done. But I think that all of these things have to happen, that even though corporations, they're invested into quantum machines. So you're going to see those vaccine creators and drug companies creating things that people are going to be using, because they're trying to figure out, how do we get our profits from somewhere else?
Yeah.
Right? We know that people are conscious about the effects of our drugs, but we don't want to give up our profits. So how can we then make a drug that people still want to buy, right? That allow us to continue to make money, but is possibly somewhat beneficial to humanity. And conscious capitalism should be the future. You can still make money, right? But it should be for social good.
Yeah.
It should have improvement of society, not just detrimental effects, right? You're going to sell your liquor. I would love for us to turn on these machines and figure out ways to where maybe we can create an alternative for every substance that we utilize that is detrimental, and have something that's positive.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to do that. Like we talked about earlier, is that we have to go over to the Congo and extract cobalt out of the ground just to be able to use it. I think the new technologies are going to allow us to just create it from molecules. Like we really don't have to do that because, all the molecules are all around us. We can just rearrange them and we could have almost any substance we want. And I think that's what that advanced technology is going to get us to, where we don't have to go and destabilize an entire area through this. The CIA does that. They destabilize the area so we can extract the resources cheaply, make them fight against each other. Now they're desperate for weapons. So we stop in and say, yeah, we'll buy all your cobalt, and give you this cheap price because you guys got to fight each other and waste bullets.
Right.
So I think in the future we won't have to do that much because we'll be able to create those everything from molecules.
So let me ask you specifically, like in Puerto Rico, I've seen a report that it was showing how there are growing wastelands in Puerto Rico. What are some of the ways that you think that can solve those issues out there?
In Puerto Rico, it's like a unique problem is that early in the 1900s, Puerto Rico used to be a bountiful place. When America took Puerto Rico from the Spanish in the early 1900s, they wrote a report and they said Puerto Rico was the most fertile land they've ever seen. So they sent a bunch of people down to Puerto Rico to do sugarcane. Sugarcane is detrimental to the soil. It sucks out all the nutrients. That's where the sugar and everything comes from. So they ran and did that for 20 or 30 years till they just depleted the ground, and then they left. So now you can't hardly grow nothing there. So the people became dependent on America to ship in the food, welfare and all this stuff, and they've been dependent ever since. So, and that's what's going on in Puerto Rico right now. So people are, there's wastelands forming, the rivers are getting polluted. It's a lot of, I worked for a company back in 2005, it was called We Clean Puerto Rico. It was an environmental company. And we went around trying to solve that problem. And we didn't solve it, but we tried to do that. So it's a big problem going on right now with that. And we're trying to fix it, but I don't know how really. But it's because of the dependence on the United States. And it really, Puerto Rico's in a weird position because they can't really be independent because they don't have, it's no resources there. They can't even grow their own food. But they really can't be a state either. That's why you keep hearing these arguments about if they're going to be a state, if not going to be a state. It's a very weird position that they're in.
I think we go from nation states to global communities anyway. I think that this idea of states that we have, I think is an old idea, right? From the 1700s or 1800s, whatever it is.
People don't even conceptually see the United States as states. We see ourselves collectively as a country.
Right.
When actually we're supposed to be separate entities.
Exactly.
We don't act that way. We don't operate that way, and we don't even conceptually see ourselves that way.
Well, I think that the founding fathers could not conceptualize the world that we're living in today.
Yeah.
So a lot of those pre-existing ideas and systems don't fit in this global world.
Exactly.
Right? So that's why things have to be modernized to where we are, and it has to be a radical overhaul. So you talk about these states, but it's like, what's a state when one person inside, what's a president? What's a state when one person has as much followers as a population of that whole country?
Exactly.
Right? When Elon Musk controls satellites above your head, you know what I'm saying? And he controls
more than any other state
of electrical cars.
Yeah.
And he can go inside those cars and extract data whenever he wants to, right? Like the type of power that he's able to accumulate. What's a president? What do you call that new thing? So we have this new class of power.
Unelected power, too.
Unelected power. It reminds me of Denzel Washington character in Gladiator. He was unelected power. He did business.
Yeah.
He put on the entertainment for the gladiators, like a modern UFC. But he got close enough to Caesar to have his ear, right? Only to cut his throat.
Yeah.
And so if we look at that same modern equivalent, right, it's the oligarchy, right, of America. America, we know that democracy is not written in the Constitution, but the illusion of a democracy at least was a great veil. Now it won't even uphold. So now we're living in a time where things get exposed, right? And as we go in the year of 2025, it's the year to end the times. It's a completion cycle. But as something ends and something new begins, right? And so I think that people need to pay attention to the signs around them, right? And then ask yourself, what world do you want to live in? And that's the world you fight for. You don't fight for try to save an old world, right? You don't fight for a world to stop a world from coming in. You're just taking on their plans. Fight for what the world you want to see, right? The way we use media today. I can go on social media. I can go on one of these AI sites and I can create B-roll of me flying through the sky, right? I can create whole new worlds for me to imagine. At a time where the fantasy industry, my brother Red Pill talked about this, was we're underfed. We don't have as much fantasies and philosophies in our head.
No, we don't. Kids don't either.
Not at
Our
all.
kids
Our
don't.
imagination is the poorest nation right now, right? And this is where we're hungry the most. Like, we need to be fed an imagination of our future where we get to manifest our destiny, in the words of Marcus Garvey. So if we think of it from that perspective, I say, okay, what does it look like in the future for my children's future world, right? To where we are able to resurrect our ancestors in our consciousness. We are able to expand on our ancestral and indigenous ways. We're able to harmonize with the land. We operate in our time, right? We have decreased crime, right? We have increased cooperation and less competition, right? We have more regenerative practices, whether that comes from farming, and more things that are sustainable, aligned with the ecosystem. We have biophilic and neural architecture around that feels aspirational, decreases our stress. We have food that is good for us, that nourishes our system, right? We have young babies that have calculator minds, right? That are super creative, right? That are great, brilliant thinkers. We're building a world in our mind to where you say, okay, this is what I want to study to go for this. This is what I'm putting my energy and my time in. But right now we're scattered brain. We don't know. We only know our fears. But what about our dreams?
Yeah, that's by design. They want us scared. It's easy to control the people when they're afraid. In Roman Empire, when they wanted to control people, they just said the barbarians at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So then people were so afraid of the barbarians,
Right,
that they let the elected, the powers that be, do whatever they wanted. They could take your rights, they can change the system, they can reduce your salaries, long as you protect us from these barbarians. The barbarians never existed until they finally did ransack Rome at the end. But every time they said they were at the gates, they never was there.
right.
You know, but they kept people in a constant state of fear that something's about to happen, so that they can control them. And that's what happens in our economy, in our society now, is that if you watch the news every day, and some of the older people in my family do that, you're always on the edge. Something bad's about to happen tomorrow.
Right.
You know, so every single day.
Yeah, I think that legacy news is going to die out.
It will.
I think that they have realized that they have less control over the populace, and this is why new strategies have to come in. Because when you have something that works so well for so long, you get used to it.
It's hard to get rid.
Right? So now they know their new data points of control. It's right here on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, eventually we're going to do away with phones and people just going to have it in their glasses.
Yeah.
Right?
Or direct to their brains.
Right. Or direct to their brains through neurocircuits, or they have it in, or some people say, I don't want it in my brain. Then they go create a way when you can just put it in your wrist.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to create something that is in harmony with whoever. Right? But it's going to get you in the system. That's the goal. Now, to live out of time, right? I think that there's going to be more off the grids. There's going to be more communities and clubs. We've seen a rise in run clubs, and the wellness industry is continuing to rise as people take their health in their own hands. They're deciding to opt out the medical industry, right? More of the biohacking industry is becoming bigger because people will rather practice things that try to optimize for their health.
Yeah.
Right? We're seeing a different labeling of marketing and branding when it comes to food. Marketers are creating designs that are more neutral or tend to go towards women because women didn't have this much buying power before. So we're seeing a complete shift, right? And this is where I'm like, all right, let's focus on like this black cosmism. Let's focus on this era where we focus on what's our cosmic shift? Who are we going to be? What are we becoming? You talked about consciousness. I think that they've done such a good job at keeping the Western consciousness so contracted that it's hard for us to believe things.
Yeah.
Right? Quantum computers are going to challenge people's belief systems.
It already is.
Right. Because now every day we're getting scientists saying, oh, you can astral travel, or the CIA said we went to Mars and back in the 70s, and they saying intelligent structures and human beings that were 11 feet tall, right? We're seeing parallel multiverse universes. We have negative time. We can figure out how to teleport a whole human being from one place to another. Things that were once theories. And this is the challenge, because it's like, what do you believe now? If philosophy or ancient civilizations told you before science ever caught up with it, which one is superior? And just because you didn't have the means of testing that to understand the truth within it, I think we're going to go into this age of super consciousness where human beings are going to expand what they believe is possible completely. It's going to be impossible to keep the mind restricted, but it also makes it hard for, as you know, we look at all this aerial activity in the sky recently in Jersey on the drones.
Yeah, I saw that.
But you're going to look up in your skies and they're going to have those drones everywhere, right? You're going to see Walmart drones.
Ones that are small as bees. And
right.
Like you can't even see those.
Amazon
mosquitoes.
We gave up our stars, right? We just going to put up lights, artificial lights, and they're going to be everywhere. So, but how do you prepare people for that, right? How do you prepare people for Palantir putting together a goddamn commercial, right?
Yeah.
On how they're going to utilize these army drones.
That's scary.
Right. Now you're going to see drone wars. Now these drones have lasers.
Or like
right?
the suicide drones. That's the scariest ones that are about the size of a basketball.
Yeah.
And they just attach to you and boom.
That's what I'm saying. Now things were
sci-fi.
That's
That's cheaper for them, yeah.
But now they're real life.
Yeah.
Now they got supersonic weapons.
Yeah.
These supersonic weapons, you know, you have the normal weapon that they can have detection systems that can shoot down missile defense systems, right? So, you know, I believe it was in the 80s where they had mutually assured destruction between America and Russia, right? Where they had a treaty basically saying that we're not going to create this, you're not going to create this, because we can destroy each other. One person broke the pact and they said, well, forget that. We create what we want to.
Yeah.
But that mutually assured destruction is back in play, right? Creating these supersonic missiles that can fly through the sky at hypersonic speed, right? Past the speed of sound by like 10 times. Right? Now you can shoot these missiles down.
The radar is sound-based, so it's very difficult to detect something by sound.
And it can zigzag.
Faster than sound. Yeah.
So it's running that fast, then it can zigzag and move. Yeah. But this is technology that they actually have. These are companies that's out there right now. So and then you attach lasers to them and drones to them, and then they got stuff like smart dust particles to where there's little tiny robots in the air. DARPA is one of the most powerful technology companies in the world. Right? They're the ones that's constantly innovating things. So if we're talking about investment thesis, these things are inevitable. I look at things that are going to have government contracts, right? That are going to be inevitable because all these nations have to compete. So if we're looking at where the asset class or where to invest in, yeah, I believe the growth sector is where it's at. Because it's not that they want to, it's because they have to. It's national security. Right? How the wars in the future won't be fought by soldiers. They're fought by robots. They're fought by drones, right? They're fought by cyber attacks. You feel me? They're fought with lasers and nanotechnology. We're not living in the same battlefield anymore.
No.
So if you invest in those companies with that technology, now some people might consider that to be immoral.
Yeah.
All I'm telling you is that as a new world is being built out, you have only two options. Build your own world or invest in a new world. It's nothing else.
Yeah.
Right? Which one are you going to do to save yourself? A man without a plan is what? Well, it's a trick question because a man without a plan isn't a man at all. February 7th, I got a plan. I want to bring everybody together and we're going to talk about and manifest the tools, the strategies, how to save ourselves. Now, what do we need saving from? Well, the first thing you must save yourself from is yourself because we have a lot of self-sabotage. Nobody's personally in your home oppressing you. What happens is your mindset, the lack of shifting into a new world and updating yourself to current time reality, utilizing the resources, the technology, right, and utilizing each other. But how can you do those things if you don't have a strategy? So I want us to come together February 7th at the Gramercy Theater so that we can have strategies in place to control our future. Times are very certain when you're confident about what you're going to do, regardless of what happens. Let's get into flow state. Let's look good, let's feel good, and make sure you put on some of that smell good too. We're building out the future of our world. Only the most powerful people will show up. That's why I'm happy you will be there. Get your tickets, go to 19keys.com, reserve your spot now. Peace, family.
Ain't nobody gonna save you. You gotta save yourself. You gotta save yourself. You gotta save yourself. You gotta save yourself. You gotta save yourself.
This is the foundation to understand your journey into cryptocurrency. You want to be prepared for the future. And although you can make a lot of money in crypto, you can actually lose a lot as well. If you're getting in just for FOMO, you don't have a strategy, you just gambling. This is one of my favorite strategies. But we're in that time where anybody can create their own money and their own economy. That means the corporations and even the banks and the governments themselves are actually jumping into it. This is that time now where you get prepared. You will have the tools to be able to go do this research on your own, find coins on your own, and understand crypto in a way that the big boys do right now. The game is here and it's real. And if you don't play in it, then you're going to be on the sidelines watching everybody else score. And I believe that this is why it's one of the most exciting times in history. If you're smart, you playing the game.
Unlock infinite wealth strategies at highlevel.19keys.com/IWS.
There's another opportunity too, is that and I've been thinking about this a lot, as these humanoid robots start to come out and things like that, even like with the drones, telecrime. I mean, when you control a robot or hack a robot and have it go rob a bank. Now that's coming out. Wow. And then there's gonna be companies that rise up to have to defend against that. Insurance products.
Drone technology.
Yeah. So think about that. Somebody's in India, and already people people can commit crime over the internet, they're way bolder than it will be in person. Like a dude would never rob you, but he'll scam you over the internet. Cause the same type of dudes that scam would never like go in a store, even steal something. So when somebody's in India and they can control a bot here that goes in a bank and robs it or whatever, that's more than likely going to start happening here soon.
Right.
No,
it is going to have, right now, it could be considered a crime for you to shoot down a drone, right? Yeah. But they have the technology to where you can't shoot them down. And they used to be available on sale on Amazon. They took a lot of them down.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, you could buy those things. But you just made a hell of a point. When you think about this idea, these new terror attacks, it's not going to be human beings all up shooting with guns like
terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
If you get a robot and like one of Elon Musk robots, and you just you attach a bunch of bombs and have it run into and control it from India or Pakistan or wherever.
Which is why that's super dangerous, because if you look at Israel, they put bombs in beepers, and it took them 10 years to execute that, right? So imagine if they got that in your cell phones, or they look at a population that consumes a certain product, right, a lot, and then they put something inside of that product, and you think it's all good. You got it for 5 years, 10 years, and then one day, boom, right? You have to understand the long game.
Radioactive parts.
Yeah.
That's even get you using it. It take 3-4 years for that you absorb that radioactivity,
right,
and actually get sick from it.
Same thing with cell phone. What if they can send a signal that can get you sick, right? They can get send it to a certain population, right, that attacks a certain DNA, right, that this particular group has more. So you got to understand, like, it's not to fear you, of course. This is just to prepare you mentally for the reality that we're living in. When I look at quantum computers, I say, well, how does a community that is behind, like my community, and we're only behind in a sense financially. I think we're ahead spiritually and mentally in a lot of different ways. Right? I think we want to constantly champion a victim mindset. When you have a victim mindset, you think about what's happened to you, right? When you have a champion mindset, if you think about people from back in the day, when they greet you, they say, hey, I reign from this tribe and this family, and my family does this. They already have a victorious mind. When we talk about, hey, I came from slavery. Whoa, slow down, brother. You okay? No, man, I come from Oakland, man. I'm a black Muslim, man. I'm a straight up guy. That's the way, that's my energy. I'm letting you know I've already won. You can't have loser energy and then win.
Exactly.
So, but I say that because if we're operating from that frequency, right, and we realize that we already have the power, right, and we say this technology is just not in the hands of the people that you don't want to use it. You have the technology as a resource as well. Then it becomes, how will you use it? If we want to become a type 1 culture, right, we have to become a culture that, number one, as black and brown people, we look at our woman with the ultimate respect, and a woman looks at the man with the ultimate respect. In this country, black women and hidden figures were the first, right, calculators and computers for NASA, right? They helped them calculate things that they couldn't figure out. So that computing power is what allowed America, right, to be a superpower. Black people in America has always been computers in America. The amount of inventions that we had allow America to be in a place that it's at. So when I look at quantum computers, I say, well, What are our quantum machines? That'll be our women. Our women have this vast intuition, right? They're beautiful. They're in harmony with self. They're growing. Sure, we have problems and issues, but we have to speak in a manner to where we're manifesting a repaired relationship. Because I believe the single most powerful thing out of all these things that we said, because human beings are more of the spirit of the human being is more powerful than man's technology. But the spirit of the human relationship between man and woman is the most powerful manifestation on this planet. So if one of our biggest issues of our relationships, if black men and women, right, got back together in harmony, I don't think it's nothing out there that can stop us. Nothing, right? Our women are the sibyls. They are the prophetess, the priestess, the ladies that can see into the future, right? They have the intuition, right? They have the insight. They can help us see parts of ourselves that we can make better. As we pour into them and they pour into us, we create this quantum leap. If you want to see that generational shift to where, okay, our boomer generation ain't gonna give it to us because our parents didn't have it, but our women are accumulating wealth. So if this brother got himself together and he got with a woman that's accumulating wealth, that's a quantum shift. That's a family just made, right? We have to look at that social shift and being like, yes, black men and women have to deserve and earn each other. Because when we talk about the loss of black family, all we're saying is black men and women don't get along.
Yeah.
We don't understand each other. We're not in harmony.
But I mean, that's partially by design too. I mean, over the last 50 years,
design.
The black family was together. And then over, since the 70s, 1964 with the Civil Rights Bill, the black family has been separated over time. And it was by design because you know if you separate the family, the mother who's the first teacher of the child, you know that you can destroy the child going 100%. Forward. So as long as you take the father out of the household, you say, as long as the father's out, we'll give you welfare. And then once they got welfare, the woman is so disrupted because she has to be both the man and the woman. She can't properly teach the child. The child goes out to the world damaged. And then the child starts to start their own from a damaged point. And they try every generation is getting degraded because of that.
Right.
And that was all by design.
And it's not just in our community, it's a societal-wide issue where
now it's
men and women, right, now, like, and that's a good point because a lot of things are going to start with the people at the bottom, and then they trickle to the people at the top.
We're seeing white families now. Is that the 100% same thing that happened with our families for the last 40 years? We're starting to see that in other communities now.
Yeah, white men have been mad that masculinity, right? All men have been mad that masculinity was so heavily targeted and underappreciated, and that we've you talk about patriarchies, right? But now we've seen the complete removal of the patriarch in the household. And now we've seen this disharmony. So now we're like, wait a minute. We understand the conversation around this patriarchal intellect, right? Because women have not had rights for a lot of time. But there's nuance in that conversation that you don't attach patriarchy to masculinity and then make the young boy not want to become a man. So therefore, you remove his will to power. You remove his will to influence his own life events. So now, instead of him being able to execute his will into reality and have some control, right? He lives in his own fantasy world instead of actually producing anything. And now the women are looking at them like, man, they ain't shit. Well, when you grew up, we were told that men ain't shit. So now he didn't want to become a man. You have to make the thing that he wants to evolve into aspirational. We have to bring back rites of passage because they have to be a moment in time.
That's something that unites everybody. Yeah, that's a good point.
Black, brown, red, Asian, all communities. Men, there's only men and women on the planet, so it's got to get along. I mean, besides the animals.
They call, after World War II, we had the biggest explosion of in the United States of economic growth.
Yeah.
And it was simply because everybody went to World War II. At a certain age, if you was between age 18 and 35, all of y'all went to World War II.
Yeah.
So 10 years in the 50s and 60s, you go up to a man and say, where were you stationed? I was stationed here and there. Well, you were stationed here. It's something that connects. Everybody had a rite of passage. So that generation did a lot more economic-wise than anybody else.
No, that's 100%. You know, and that's why I say if we should not look at these things as competition but cooperation. You got to stop letting legacy media say, hey, black women are the most educated. What's happening with the men? No.
They repeat that a lot,
Right.
too, on purpose.
Right, because what they're doing is they're giving you this identity and then making you look at the next person as their opposition.
Yeah.
You're not, right? We congratulate you, right? We understand, right? We appreciate that you've taken up a mantle. Now, let's work together. Oh, you got some money? Right? Who wants to buy an empty house? That asset ain't worth nothing. It's only worth something if it's filled with a family.
Exactly.
Right? That's different. So the goal is not to buy houses. The goal is to create homes, right? Repaired homes. And that requires a repair culture. That requires us to be focused. We love having fun. Sometimes we got to say, man, in Japan, while they was building out the Bushido, it went to 200 years of taking the wisdom of the samurais and the shogun and all of that. There was economic stagnation when that happened. Right? Because they could not prioritize money if you're trying to get the spirit of the culture and the people right. So there has to be a time when we prioritize this spiritual and cultural revolution, right? The thing is they keep us in a rat race. We don't even know when we have enough because they keep moving the silk.
Never even know, man.
And you have to take away $1 as an enough point. $1 don't mean you have enough, right? You have enough when you know thyself, right? When you have the courage to live life fully. When you have a family and you can look at your son, right? And he wants to be like you because you are a good example and you are a leader in life and you influence your community in the right way, right? You talked about it. If a man had the simple things in life and simple pleasantries, you got you a farmland with your family there, right? Y'all have, regenerative farming to where the food that you eat off the land, right, is sustaining itself. Right? And then your neighbor and them got a farm and you eating from their greenhouse and you giving them a little money and they're able to, and they're not focused on making huge profits. They're focused on sustaining the community to where there's a circular economy. That makes sense, right? But if we're focused on, I need to have more than you. You got your own, you ain't gonna share with me, I need what you got, right? I don't care if you got it. I don't wanna share it with you. I wanna have all of those things to accumulate to be like, listen, I got the car, I got the house, I got all the technology, I got all the jewelry in the world. So now when I come outside, I look at you, we're in competition. I'm keeping up with you. Forget all of that keeping, right? Let's cooperate with each other. If I got it, you got it.
Exactly.
You feel me? Now that's far off from where we are now, but the idea is to have a goal, right? But the universe responds to frequency. So we have to come from a place of a victor mentality. We ran from very strong people who conquered lands, who built this country, who innovated, who invented. And we go further back. We come from warrior classes. We come from people who built civilizations, who have their own spiritual and mathematical practices, who charted the stars. We can find a place where we reign from and we feel supreme, right? You got your child and they telling you, man, I don't feel like I'm gonna win. Man, I know you gonna lose then.
Yeah.
I know you gonna lose.
Confidence in
Yes. So making a superior, confident society, that's how we move forward. So we have to stop depicting us losing. We have to stop speaking from a place of
slaves.
Yeah, no, all that slave shit, all that's out the window. Unless you go show me the goddamn Seminole Wars. Show me the warriors that we had that fought for their freedom multiple times and won.
We focus on that little, especially in America. You remember slavery in America wasn't that long. It was from 1776 to 1860s. So we focus on that like maybe 80 years of time period when, African culture is centuries, millennia. Kings and queens rose. They've created stuff. They created whole villages and communities. Right. All of this legacy for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We focus on that 200 years.
You going into Black History Month, focus on civil rights for the most part.
That's it.
All right, so this is a good...
It's all we talk about. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King.
Right.
They don't talk about Malcolm X that much.
I know, they don't talk about the most powerful leaders. They don't talk about the ones that had the most radical change. The ones that actually mirror more of the thoughts that we speak today. Do for self, build your own, right? Create your own economies. We can look at Black Wall Street, right? Black Wall Street happened, what was it, May 1921. It was actually the same day of a magnetic storm, right? And it was a 19-year-old boy, right? Who was in an elevator, and the girl came out, so-called screamed and said something, and they considered it a rape. Now, during that time, it wasn't, right? They believed they was having a relationship or something went wrong, right? Age old tale. But during that time, we look back at Black Wall Street because the city was attacked. The city was bombed by America, right? And they never got reparations for that. And we look at the amount of money that circulated during that time, which was some millions. Not crazy, to be honest.
It was a start, though.
But the idea of it, right, was that we were focused on our own liberty. We wasn't asking for no handouts. Wasn't asking for nothing. Then you go to the Silent Parade, which is one of the first marches, protests of these killings that happened for these young boys in East St. Louis. And we out there in the streets protesting with signs about ownership and how we own acres of land and it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And how we have, it was a whole list of how we are mason bricklayers and how we are nurses and how we got engineers and how we got all these things. And the brothers are saying that, listen, when the war popped off, we were the first to shed blood. You feel me? We've not tried to assassinate a single president in this country, right? We're not asking you to give us anything, but at the same time, it is the role of government to create opportunities for its people and its citizens. Yeah. And for the most part, the protest to me looked like a protest towards each other, saying that this is who we are, this is what we have our own stability. It wasn't yelling, it was saying we can do for self. And the most radical leaders throughout time all had that same message. Let's do for self and create our own economy, right? Let's learn how to govern ourselves. The new young leaders in the new movement today sound just like that. But then you have the church and you have the civil rights leaders. Now, after, of course, World War II, right? After a lot of the leaders were assassinated, they took the face of it. But who had to me, the best economy of a leader would have been Elijah Muhammad. At the time, they would come in and report that, hey, we did $50 million this year based on their economics. They had housing, they had schools, they had aviation schools, they had trusts, they had farms, they had airplanes, import, export goods, a whole list. But when you hear about a nation, you don't hear about this. They don't teach you about this in school. Why don't you learn about this economy that was this nation network in America, right? All throughout America that was thriving. In today's time, that 50 million be worth 500 plus million. Yeah. And if it would have continued, that'd have been worth billions. But why don't we go all the way back to Black Wall Street? See, we only look at victim stories, civil rights. We're fighting for these rights. We've had blueprints. Elijah Muhammad had an economic blueprint where everybody give 15 cents a day or so. Today's time, you're talking about let's get $5 or something, right? And it was a way to create an economy inside an economy. Today, we can do that. If there was a strategic Bitcoin reserve in Black America, why can't we build that reserve and then leverage against that to go buy assets, right?
A good point.
As a network.
Yeah.
So then when people ask me like, well, we can't do nothing, we can't have this. No, we actually got way more resources than we've ever had.
We won't even have a sustainable black bank, really.
Exactly.
Like a large-scale national black bank. We should. We got several billionaires. We got a bunch of athletes. We got a bunch of actors.
We're off our own blueprint. So you're operating off a civil rights blueprint of assimilation. How do we assimilate to get along? You feel me?
1% of capital, of venture capital goes to black people. 1%.
Yeah.
And black people make up 20% of society, maybe more.
And they've already showed us that they're never going to invest in
Nah,
this.
never.
So the idea of let's put our energy in fighting big to change their mind is stupid.
And to think about this, man, is that why would a white man in power want to give up some of his power?
Why would he? He will not.
He will not. He'll give you something to shut you up temporarily.
And we have to come to the face that some of our ancestors and a lot of the civil rights leaders sold us out for $1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To shut them up. And they were just controlled opposition. They were what's considered to be the boule. We've always had a boule. A boule, some of them was the free class that didn't go through slavery, and they looked at the lower class as lesser than. And the only time that they did have some cooperation with each other is when they wanted to fight against the system, because that system would show them like, listen, you're not like us. You may think you better than them, but you just the uppity, you feel me?
Yeah.
So we was like, wait a minute, y'all treat us the same way just like them. Now y'all want to come around when it's time to protest and march and fight for something. Same thing we see with celebrities in politics today, right? So the boule is really the ones that's in our way. If we look at DOGE as Department of Government Efficiency, well, we look at Black America as a network, right? How do we make this more efficient? You know what I mean? So who controls the media that does not spotlight certain voices? They only put safe voices. There's so many different archetypes of Black men that never get shown, celebrated, or supported. You have to fight for that recognition.
Yeah.
This person gets an award. We saying this person is number one. What if we had a different type of economy? Number one, we had a billionaire that would champion engineering, right, and mathematics, so that they would have pushed, saying that let's see a generation of engineers the same way in Shenzhen, China it happened, the same way in India it happened, so that we're in the popular tech sectors of the future, so that as all of the value goes into them, we benefit, right? I love what Robert Smith did when he paid the bill of those students, but what could be more effective going into the future if we say, how about I'll pay the tuition for engineering students, those who get into technology, those who get into nation building skill sets specifically. You will create a whole generation, right, of leaders that we need to build out our own world to where we ain't got to be dependent on them.
Like if you had a big, like a Bitcoin strategic reserve, you could, like, that's what Harvard does. They have a an account.
Right.
They got, everybody donates to this account, and the whole school is run off the interest off the money.
Come on now. So like when you say things can't be done, or people have that mentality, it's like, no, we live in a great time. We're not victims. We never were, actually. We're just going through a cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people talk about living multiple lives. Like, at the end of the day, we are our ancestors' next life. If we learn from the knowledge that's in our DNA and the knowledge of the world, we actually get to be the greatest generation, because we have hindsight and we can have foresight on what to do next. But it's not gonna happen unless we righteous, because we try the Machiavellian 48 laws of power way. That don't work for us. That destroys us. We have to have balance, right? We have to go for liberation and not peace. Sometimes you have to have conflict. We have to audit the houses that have influence and power and say, are they in the way or are they leading the way, right? So I look at the NAACP, I look at the church organizations, I look at the mosque in America, I look at those who, and I say the church because 70-80% of Black people grew up in
some type of church.
Yeah, church or Christians or that tradition. So they have the most influence. The question is, when are we going to have the most progress? And I'm seeing new age leaders that are popping up. Those are the ones that we should celebrate. I was always taught a good Christian is a good Muslim. So it's not a us versus them type of thing. It's a more of what is the best philosophy to move forward on as a collective that we can agree on. What is even something that we agree on? You start with what we agree on.
Yeah.
You don't create no contract on disagreement. It's a
The only thing we agree on is politics in most cases, but that's not good either.
Most cases.
But we will vote all basically one way, but that's not good either, really.
I think we can agree on values. I think we can agree on economic values.
That too, yeah.
We believe in the idea of generational wealth. We believe in assets over liabilities. As a philosophy, nobody can argue that. I don't care if you're a Hebrew, Israelite, Moor, Muslim, Buddha, whatever it is, you can agree, yes, we should produce our own. Produce what we consume. We can agree with that. But what we need is more strategy to where individuals like yourself can help us lay down that foundation. And that's why I say the unity is not about, hey, me and you connect together. It's about us agreeing on a philosophy and we operate within that same value system.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's where the future lies, is that we find some common ground and build from there.
Yeah. So you do have decentralized physical networks, right? You have my brother, Blockchain Bully's the first person that put me on the helium, right? Where you have these real world infrastructures for connection, for energy. And the helium essentially is, right, a cell phone that pays you, right?
Yeah.
They have their own systems. Can you explain some of those type of crypto projects that people are not seeing the real world behind it? That when I say, I call it the block market instead of the stock market. It's the blockchain market. The stock market represents companies. These represents projects. It's only a change of language because it's a project because they're trying to build out something that didn't exist.
Yeah, so these decentralized networks offer everybody the opportunity to make money, and they all do it different ways, right? Bitcoin allows you to set up a computer, connect to the network, and you'll mine Bitcoin, right? So basically you get paid for verifying transactions and verifying the overall network to make sure it's secure. So almost predictably, and based on your processing power, you'll get money for that. And that's what Bitcoin miners do. Ethereum, you stake your Ethereum. So you use 32 Ethereum and you put it, as almost as collateral on a node, and that's what secures the system. So if you are a malicious actor, they'll take some of your money, but you're not gonna be malicious because you don't wanna lose your money. So everybody, that's how they secure the network. There's other things like Helium, other projects that are out there that are trying to do the same type of idea to like the cell phone system, or maybe like file storage. Instead of us storing all our files on AWS, we'll do decentralized. So you got a computer, you got 100 gigabytes. Remember, the worldwide computational power and storage power is ridiculous. Who uses their whole computer? So let's say, for example, you want to render a video, right? So you may say, I could buy a big server that costs $10,000 to render this video if you're like in video animation, or I can use a decentralized system, and all these people around the world you may be at work, your computer's just sitting there.
Right.
I'll take this project or this, whatever I have to compute or whatever, and I'll divide it among all the processors. Right. And then these people will receive money for their unused time, processors, storage, stuff like that. So we have that means that you can build an income on stuff you're not even using. Right. Maybe like your computers at home, your cell phone as you're sleeping, all of these things.
Now you just broke a really great point, and I love that because yes, it's the same thing with energy, right?
Energy, yeah.
You got energy at the house that you're not using.
Solar power.
Yeah, neighbor networks, being able to, I think that's and this goes back to, the world forum talking about you own nothing, right? And you'll be happy. There's a sinister tone under that, but then there's also an indigenous way to that, right? Because there was a time where we didn't own anything, we were happy.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, is it sinister or should it be the way, right? Now, I understand why people don't want the elites to own everything. Yeah. We own nothing, that's different. But as a philosophical reference from an indigenous way, it's a good thing. From the elites versus the people, it's a bad thing, saying that y'all just get to milk us forever.
Yeah.
But this idea of these decentralized power systems and these energy networks, we have a social network, you have energy networks, you got Wi-Fi networks, you got these networks to where you get to make money off these assets that you own, right? And when you're not using them, then you can lend that to somebody else and get paid. And setting up your life in a manner as the future goes towards these new grids, right, is very important, right? That is the Save Yourself blueprint of understanding the future and setting your life up to benefit based on where we're headed to.
Yeah, that's where I think that's where universal basic income is going to come from. Is that all these assets in your life, your car, your even solar powers on your roof, the world gives us sustainability,
right?
And what we can live for, based on whatever the world gives. Like in Puerto Rico, one thing I noticed is that people in the country, they really don't have to even go to the grocery store. All the fruit trees and banana trees, avocado, there's chickens in the backyard. All their food is there and it replenishes itself. The eggs there every morning. So you take an avocado off, another one is growing, it replace it. So they like, what do I need? I don't need to go to the grocery store.
Systems.
Yeah. So I think that that also exists in our everyday life. Like, for example, is that we got a roof on our house that's just collecting sun rays all day. We put solar panels on there, now we got free electricity. We don't have an electricity bill. Actually, when you're off on vacation, it reverses the meter because you're feeding into the system and they owe you.
Right.
And then you also have a computer. You got a laptop, computers, you got cell phones. Those are all compute power. Compute is so important. You hear people like Elon Musk and people talk about a concept called compute. And how they talk about it almost like money. They're like, oh, we can't, you hear them talking sometimes, they were like, well, we got to be careful how much compute we use or how little compute we use, because computational power is currency now. And you have it on your phone, you got it on your laptop, you got it on every device, your Apple Watches. That's all power that can be used for somebody to compute something or to create some kind of rendered video or to store files on decentralized storage. So if you're able to access all these things in your life, you will generate almost sustainable universal basic income.
I think that's powerful. The computing power, again, that goes towards like us. I think it's the managing of systems, right? The managing of energy. Like, you have only so much energy throughout the day. You have a certain amount of computing power for your brain.
Exactly.
If we're looking at it, of course, as our language right now is to compare ourselves to machines, right? So we think about our efficiency and our output of the day. These are all machine languages, right? But the goal is how do we get back to a human language? That's when you have flourishing and things that are more regenerative, and that's when we're operating in flow, as I was talking about the analogy in the beginning. If things are constantly changing, then you should focus on adaptation, right? How do you adapt in these times? And that comes from being in flow itself, right? If you're stressed, you're not going to be able to adapt. So this is why wellness is so key right now, because you have to be in that beta state. You have to be actively thinking, right? But you also have to be in a relaxed state to where you can move as things go around. We have to focus on the wisdom, right? Going to that water mind and understanding that we are water bodies, we flow and everything affects us all around us, right? There's energy all around us that affect our state, right? I have some glasses like these that have the blue blockers on there, right? So that light doesn't affect my circadian rhythm after a certain time. Otherwise, it throws me off. I want to stay in flow the whole entire time. So it don't matter as things shift and change, I can move with them, right? And our ability to, as we go into this Aquarian age of more innovation and cosmic shift, we have to recenter ourselves and realign. And we have to get away from these events that are just focused on capital, right, structures and things of that nature, because those things are dying out. So we should not rush into things that are dying out just because we're late to the party.
Exactly.
Right? Everybody else is leaving. We're like, where they going? We're like, oh, actually, we done with that. So that is sort of the caution tale to our people of like, I get that we're late to this party, but this party is also almost over. We should be focused on the new parties because we're never going to win those old systems. That nihilism exists for a reason.
That's a good point, because one of the systems that's dying is being educated, going to college.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
Done.
And now, like,
they used to get mad when I said that.
Yeah, I know, it's true. I went to college, I got my degree, but the thing about it is that, just be honest and realistic, is that and if like if you look at history, like back in the 80s and 90s, like I never knew my whole family in Tennessee, nobody went to college, nobody. So my mom pushed me, because in her mind she said that's the way you become successful is college. So she just pushed it, because I didn't go, my family, so she kept pushing us. So that's all. I went to college, graduated, and life didn't change much for me. And then I had to still work my way up. But since I graduated, college has become pushed on everybody for the money, for the financial benefits for over the university. So I guess so everybody's getting degrees. They're realizing that it's not working because, like you said, they're late to the party. The elites have moved on to something else.
Exactly.
They let y'all deal with this college stuff and all that stuff. My son is just gonna skip over college. He's gonna go right into the business, or he's gonna learn in real life, or he's gonna maybe go to Harvard or somewhere. He's gonna get it's a different education level there, but he's not gonna go to a regular college, go to a 4-year degree, because that's late to the party now. Now we're sitting around. I go into college and it's not working because you're late to the party. Everybody, the elites have moved on.
And if you late, then you focus, okay, what is the new thing? So like, what is the new money, right? If the dollar is decreasing in value and they're willing to take their dollar and they're putting it into a new system, what will be money in the future? This idea of money, right? So there was this post that I seen where a man was saying that he consults elites, and one of the guy was afraid. He was a deca millionaire. He was like, when we get into a new system, and let's say the money, the dollar is not worth anything, how do I keep control over my people, right? Because the only reason that they have control over those people is because they can pay them a wage for their human capital, what they're worth. But if his dollar is not worth anything and all these people work for him, then what happens that day? So they're building these underground bunkers and trying to escape to Mars and doing all these things. But it's an interesting concept to think about. The idea of money is transitioning and changing, which is more so, it's all energy systems that are shifting. One world is going out of power and new world is going in, because the money just represents a metric of energy, an exchange of energy, a currency exchange, electricity.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about currencies, right, in the current of the seas, right, we're talking about the flow of transactions. And so we have to think about our own power. Like in your day, if we measure that by human joules, you have so much energy throughout the day. The way you manage that has to get better, right? So that you can get the greatest amount of output for self. You don't want to get frustrated. You don't want to get stuck. The whole idea of a quantum computer is they can operate doing multiple things, right? At once, it don't have to exist in a binary state, 1 or 0. It can exist in multiple states at the same time, which is a very powerful, which is of qubits, right? Now, if we are going into a quantum world, we have to develop quantum minds, right? We have to think beyond just logic, which is that binary system, that's 0, 1, right? We have to think with imagination. We have to philosophize about the future. It was shown that there was a study, or not a study, but it was it JP Morgan? It was one of the banks that was saying they're looking for students that's going to be in philosophy, right? That can think, the art of thinking, because a lot of people are not active thinking.
It's being lost now.
Right.
Yeah.
So we look at AI models, what are they saying AGI is going to do? It's going to think. It's going to think for itself. How many people in the world think for themselves, right? We don't even have human beings that are optimal to that level. They're just told what to do, and then they respond on that action, and then after that action, they don't know what to do. The whole idea of the new AI update is you get to see what it's thinking, so-called, right? Which some people are saying is still just predictable guesses that it's throwing in there, right?
Yeah, right now, but I mean, it's going to eventually cross over a point. I mean, with the models we use now, we use diffusion and we use transformer models. Those models are not going to be AGI, but like a neural-based model is replicated off the human brain. Those are the ones that are going to become consciousness,
right?
Or similar. People don't understand this either. It's going to either be conscious or a simulation of conscious. It don't matter which one it is, because to us, like I'm not sure if you're conscious. You're not sure if I'm conscious. You seem like you're conscious, so I just assume that you are. You see, so if they simulate consciousness, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that is the point. A lot of people, and that's why philosophy is this active thinking, is challenging, right, self. And then you having this existential consciousness about your own reality and existence.
Exactly.
And that's why we need to have more philosophical conversations that break us out of the mundane, right? Otherwise, we just stay in these boxes. And in these boxes, you can't flow.
You have to think like, I like what you said about quantum computers, is they exist in superposition, all possible states, and they choose a position at the end. But that ability to take on all positions is what makes them so powerful.
I say it's like choosing the right baby mama the first time.
Exactly.
Imagine you got to go live this whole life. You go through CPS, you go through crisis, she yelled at you, you got issues and problems. You're like, damn, I done chose the wrong one. The quantum state is like you sitting there and meditating and see all life outcomes.
All possible
and being
combinations.
Like, I'm going to choose this one. That's my way of simplifying the quantum machine. It's making the right choice.
You know, they actually say that quantum computers prove the existence of that actually happened. They said at the quantum level, every possible universe exists.
Right.
You know, every possible thing that could possibly exist at the quantum state.
I was thinking, I'm walking to here, and one of my moms like, jump over the couch. And then another mom's like, why would you do that? Just walk past it. And in another universe, I jumped in the couch, fell, and chipped my tooth. And we had to delay the interview. In this universe, I calmly walked and sat down, right? You came in, and we had the conversation. And the idea is that each thought splinters a new dimension.
Yeah.
And you might not live it out, but it's lived out by that thought form.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's very interesting because it gets us to really think about our decisions. Right? And not only that, what's the show with the quantum machine? Amechi, dark matter. So in the idea of dark matter, they talk about your emotional state, right? To me, what they were showing was a quantum machine. Every time they had this infinite tunnel, they open this door, and each door they open represents a new world. But that world is directly correlated to your emotional state before you open that door. So if you feel despair, you might go into a world of despair, right? So they had to learn how to meditate and center themselves. And they realized it wasn't just what they was thinking, it was what they was feeling. Because a lot of people think, oh, if I put the thought there, but what do you feel? Because the universe responds to feeling, frequency, right? What you operate on. So now we're in this time where you have to really get right with self. You have to get your feelings together. And a lot of people emotional and they exist in these crazy states, so anything can happen. So you have to have your mind there, your heart there, your gut there, and when you align, and that's why I say the victory frequency matters, right? That energy matters.
It's a good point, man, about being emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything can. That's a good point. I never thought of it like that, is that anything can happen when you live your life emotions.
Why you keep
there is no
emotional.
like intention.
If you keep people emotional, they can't control.
You don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
Right? They showed that they measured nothingness, basically. It shows you that in this vacuum of nothingness, it's still these states of potential. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to me the most profound quote that I've heard him say, or one of them rather, that the universe, he said that when Allah made the universe out of nothingness, he destroyed the impossible. And when I was actually able to see nothingness, right, you realize that the idea of, we think about nothing like it's just this vacuum, nothing at all exists. But it's not, it's potential, right? And when you are filled with the right thought, you can be magnified with that potential, right? It can exist in chaos or it can exist in order. Before you make each thought, it's almost like you're taking nothing and turning it into something. That's the God thought, right? Some people come from nothing, but then they practice alchemy. How do I transmute this into something? In your imagination, you have the greatest ability to create worlds from nothing. What is it? You don't have any physical resources. It's not materialized. So this is why I say the imagination is so important, and you have to be careful what you feed into your mind, right? We on the phone and we scrolling these feeds, and then you talking about you about to go do your work. But now you're in a terrorized emotional state, right? So if you're not starting from a calm place in a center, you can't control the outcome.
Imagine that, man. Like, I just thought about that while you was talking. If you live your life and you say, I'm going to respond to every emotion during that day, imagine how chaotic your day is going to be. You don't even know where you're going to end up at the end of the day. In jail, right? At home, you don't even know. If you just respond, every time somebody does so, cut you in line, you get mad and live that way. You have no control over your life at all.
When I go to the airport, long lines is always something that get people, right? And you realize the airport creates anxiety in some than others. You over anticipate stuff. How long is this? So they say you got to reset your nervous system. Take it. You do that multiple times, it resets your nervous system. Therefore, you're operating from a baseline. Most people baseline be high already. It's overstressed. So it's not that it's taking long. It's the way you're experiencing it, right? Because you're looping this feeling over and over and over. Instead, what if you loop calmness? The whole time you're relaxed. Time goes by. I learned patience as a child when I was sitting down and waiting, and I realized I can't control time in that manner, right? Now, you can sit still, and sitting still allows you to travel through time, because I think about it like this. If you freeze somebody's body, that's time traveling.
Yeah.
Right? Because they slow down to the point of stillness. And the quantum computer, that whole machine you see is not the computer, it's a small chip, but it needs to be in code, right? It needs to be in this frozen state. And I think about that same thing with us. We have to be in this space of stillness in order to control reality. So that means we have to stop consuming what they give us from the food level, from the media level, because now here we are utilizing this powerful brain of ours, right? Which we call is brain power, computing power, but our brain power is manufacturing realities for us to fight. We see something we're angry at on TV. You just manufacture the reality for you to react to. Now part of your computing power, your brain power, is going to trying to dispel that reality that only exists in a personal relationship with you. So how much energy do you have at the end of the day to manifest your own destiny? Not much.
That's what they want you like that. That's what we talked about earlier, is that they keep you at a high state of anxiety the entire day. You first of all, you're gonna watch the news or watch whatever. Everything's always negative, or either like you think something's about to happen, and then later on in the day your sports team's on, and while you're watching that sports team, you don't know if they're gonna win or lose, and you know, so the whole day you're at a heightened state of anxiety, and they fill you with carbohydrates that also create your anxiety, and then that almost keeps you like at a height, like almost like a dog. You know, when you train a dog and he like stands there waiting for a command. So now whenever they want to activate you, they just say some words, and now you're activated.
Right.
You know, so that's where they want you, like that.
I just posted the quote that reading decreases stress by 68%, right? Which is equivalent and even outperforming like walking outdoors, right? Or it could be even working out. And we're the generation that reads the least. But now we're seeing that there's a trend that's coming back where, you know, bookstores are starting to increase sales because people utilizing that as a time to de-stress again, right? Doctors can write you a prescription for going into nature so that you can de-stress.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, because it is scientifically proven, right? In Japan, they do this a lot. So when you think about the reading population, and I got a book club that we started, and this month to month, we pick a different book. But I had correlated that to poverty-induced stress disorder. And I'm like, if you grow up in poverty, right, then you're more stressed out because you have less control over your environment. This makes you sick. Then you can't afford, right, the wellness. You can't afford the treatment. You can't afford to get the help. So now you feel more helpless, and then you start to spiral in this circle. So you just stay pissed, right? PISD. So I was saying, reading, if that decreases your stress to a baseline, and you're getting solutions at the same time to help you out your situation. This is why some people are able to make quantum leaps from where they're from, and other people are stuck in that loop, and they're like, I don't read. Well, that's part of your problem. You can't operate from that place of stress, otherwise you will only produce that. So this is where you have to find flow. Find things in your environment, like reading, like meditation, like eating the right food, so that your body is in the right energetic state and operating at a higher frequency to produce a reality beyond the one you currently feel or live.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about earlier about AI, having to build an AI model that works better, you have to get a lot of information in. And that's what reading does, right? Is that you don't only read what you like, you read what you don't like, you know, maybe something that may not even like agree, you know, that you don't even agree with, because the more information you get in, the better decisions you make. You know, a lot of people won't do that. They were like, oh, I don't believe in that, throw the book away.
Right.
You know, the elite don't do that. The elite study Hitler, see how he did it. The elite see his tactics, they study all of that stuff. They tell you not to read it. Don't read that Hitler book. Right? They're reading it, studying how all this stuff was done in the past, and they study all of that stuff. Then that's how they're able to keep control.
Well, also, if you teach those people those things, then when you use some of those tactics yourself, then they can see the game.
Yeah.
It's like scapegoating, right? You know, the scapegoating is when we have all of these economic inequalities of the world. Instead of looking at the people who actually perpetuate the problem or have problem over it, we go to those closest to us, like a celebrity, right? Or a public figure. Yeah. So instead of saying that, yo, you are this elite, you have control over this system and this power, we only focus on who in front of us. So a lot of elites, they'll just disappear out of public eye.
Yeah.
So you can't get at them, right? You can't say I'm the cause of, right, your issues. But if it's a celebrity or a public figure, they're close enough for you to blame.
Yeah.
So even though it doesn't make logical sense for a celebrity, right, for you to focus all your energy in saying that their lifestyle represents a degradation of society and all these issues and problems, and some of it is true as far as the influence is concerned, but they're not the root of it, not even close to it. Yeah. And we hear about these family elites or these people so-called, but you don't know their name.
No, you don't know.
Right, so you can't hate on them.
You don't even know what you got a whole family name, but you don't know the individuals.
So you go for the baby elites. You go for who's the closest to
so who the politician is.
Exactly.
Whatever, yeah.
But that's never the real power. Now, if you are an elite, what would you do? If you are a public face and you're utilizing that influence, then you would be in a crowd with the people pointing at them too.
That's a good point.
All right. So we see some elites utilize that tactic so that people never look at them, because it doesn't make sense.
Because their power is multi-generational.
Right.
So they're not worried about just keeping it in power themselves. They got to keep it going down the line.
And that happens in all societies and cultures, right? That happened in Nazi Germany. That happened in Roman times, right? That always happened. Or you were shifted to get people to think about, communism instead of focusing on what's going on over here at the government, right? Or focusing on identity of race and social classes and disorder, right? Or nationalism, right? So you're never actually going to the root as a collective. And this is why you never really want to be in agreement with the masses, because the masses are always doing the emotional
They're
thing.
always wrong, really.
They never doing the logical thing.
No.
So when they hate a celebrity, I'm taking a step back and like, maybe there's some logic to that, but it's unreasonable for all this focus to be on this person when they don't have a power over your reality at all. And if you remove them, the world stays the same.
It's funny how that happens. Is they'll just tell you, hey, this guy did this, and this is the information that proves it. Here's a video, here's some text that got sent or whatever, and then people will just turn on the person instantly.
Yeah.
And like all that could be fabricated.
Because you need somebody
They
to
never
blame.
even think about, maybe that nobody goes to the point and says, maybe this is fabricated, or maybe nobody, whatever, oh, I saw him do this, so he must be guilty.
But there's no more burden of proof. But then what can you believe today? You can fabricate sounds, you can fabricate numbers.
Fabricate everything, or you could put it in a certain context that makes it look worse or better than it is.
They have a time machine, it's a program that when they delete something off Wikipedia, you can go back and see what was deleted, right? So they see how Epstein's name was deleted from Bill Clinton's profile, right? Like, if somebody new going and researching that and looking at that, they would have never seen it, right? Like, but imagine you got a quantum machine that can go in and erase things in the past, right? And then create a trail as if it always existed.
That's what happened in the book 1984. Same thing, had people that would go back in the old newspapers and change them.
Right. So now, how do we know what the past is? The past is a collection of stories that is passed down, particularly by the victor, right? But when we think about language and we think about what was their agenda, we can't trust the past from the victor. You have to have multiple perspectives in order to have the truth, right? Because some people only want to see it this way. And then there's somebody else that say, wait a minute, he was right here. This is the truth. I tell you to describe the back, you can only describe the front. You can't describe the back of the back. Only I can do that from my perspective. It's not that you don't have the truth, you don't have the full truth. Now, what's more important? Is accuracy important? Because I can say, how tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
Right, 6'6", is it 6'6", 2.3? Is it 6'6", 2 point what?
Oh, with meters?
Right.
It's right at 2.98, or 1.98.
Right now, does it matter if I'm that accurate?
No.
Exactly. Most people get a general picture of the truth.
Yeah.
But the accuracy matters when you want to build on a foundation. You feel me? Because you need a structure of integrity. So does it matter if Jesus is black or white? Right? Well, if it doesn't matter, then why isn't he depicted accurately? It's always these questions, right? But you realize it does matter because he's a symbol, so he creates a conscious change depending on how you see him.
Yeah.
Because you know that based on design, there's going to be neural activity.
It's also, like that kind of stuff too. It's like, if I'm a certain color and I see my savior as a certain color, it instills confidence in me.
Exactly. So we know that design matters. So the way something is designed matters. Whether you show him in a red, whether in a red is going to activate that nervous system, or whether you show him in a white robe, right? That's going to be a more calming. Everything matters. And when you start thinking nothing doesn't matter and you don't get to the accuracy, you never get to the root, and you're much easier to be controlled. So as the world is shifting, you have to decide what matters. You have to be able to utilize your intuition so you can feel and know what's truth. Because right now, you can't trust your senses, right? Something can smell healthy and smell delicious and be completely unhealthy for you.
Yeah.
Something can look real and be completely fake.
Yeah.
Something can sound right? But it could be negative for you, right? Like everything in the world is based on, not everything in the world, but most of these things are illusions, and we don't spend enough time in the real world. We have a beta generation coming, beta test, right? This is our test to see if we can create a generation that is superior, right? What will we feed them? You got new mothers and new fathers. Are you conscious enough to have these children to where you're feeding them these organic foods and making sure they're growing up in a harmonious environment, right? And you're giving them the truth so that the next generation is the most powerful generation ever? This is not conversations we normally have on a global scale thinking about that, but now we get to have them. And now we get to actually beta test to see, right? If we say who we are or we think we are or what we think we know is right, let's put it to the test in the next generation. Because if you want to control the future, beta test the next generation.
Yeah, I agree.
So, my brother, I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me, man.
I want to ask you one last thing, and if you could tell people the importance of this next 6 years as we go into this financial shift. If you can give a message to the world, what would you?
I would just say for the next 6 years, you're going to have more innovation and change than in 99% of human history. We've never going to, our life today in 6 years is going to be completely different. We have humanoid robots walking around. AGI would have been realized. Cryptocurrency is going to be everywhere. It's going to be a completely different world. And most people either going to be able to handle that change and execute and make some money or grow or whatever you have to do. Is a lot of people are going to be left behind. You have to make the decision like right now. Do I want to be left behind, or do I want to grow with this system and improve where I'm at today with what the big changes is coming? And I would just tell people to make sure episodes like this are good. Make sure you stay on top of it. That's always good, is that because you're able to execute if you know what's coming ahead. And just make those investments either in yourself or in the market or stocks, crypto, whatever. It's even ways that if you have a job, you can use that AI and a lot of these technologies to expand. The first movers always make the most money. The people that got on the internet first and were able to move their traditional businesses to the internet made a lot of money. And over time, the margins come down as everybody starts figuring it out. So if let's say you have a lawn mowing business and you're the first to use humanoid robots, you're going to make a lot of money until everybody else catches up. So you can apply that to everything. So I would just say invest heavily, learn, and execute when the time comes.
Well, I appreciate that, man. As we go into this Aquarian shift, as we go into this new world, I want to let people know, please focus on expanding self, expanding your field of understanding, expanding your consciousness, expanding your tool belt, your skill sets, right? Your ability to communicate thoughts, your ability to harmonize with your environment. Focus on you manifesting your own future, right? And the future should look like a blueprint that you have in mind, right? Focus how you can harmonize and cooperate with the people around you. Don't focus on the disagreements. Those things will always exist. But you build bridges based on the things that y'all agree upon. And then that allows us to take this jaded perspective that we've had about unity and finally find some cooperation. I think that all it requires is us to figure out what's the best way to do it in our time. And as creative as we are, as innovative as we are, there should be no reason, right, that we can't figure out the solution to our problems that existed all of these times. The simplest one is our relationships, right? Man and woman needs to be in harmony with each other. As we're in harmony with each other, then we get in harmony with the planet. We focus on taking stewardship of this planet. When I was younger, I was taught the actual facts about this planet, the real estate. How much is the land? How much is the water? How much are the oceans? How much are the mountains, the rivers, right? How fast is the speed of light, sound? Why? Because they wanted us to understand that this is your universe. This is your world, right? The same way, if you know the square mileage of your house, you should know the square mileage of your planet. So let's take ownership of our world and build our own future. I'm 19 Keys. Thank you for being a part of another high-level conversation. Peace.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is high-level conversation. Tap in with the guy.
AI is going to continue that, almost guaranteed. It's going to make the wealth gap bigger, but there also is an opportunity. You could choose which side you want to be on. In AI, the thing about AI is that it's about who understands and harnesses the power. It's not even so much about like an industrial revolution. You had to have a big factory, so you had to have resources and capital. AI is who leverages the existing technology. So I would encourage people to learn, to just start, learn as much as you can, figure out ways to apply it in your life, and then execute. The reason why time is running out for traditional investing is because AI, quantum computers, and all these types of advanced technologies is going to reduce the inefficiency in the entire economy. So there will be no gaps, no way to you make money. We make money right now because of what's called market inefficiency. And that means that there's something somebody's not doing 100% and we're able to take some of that value for ourselves. That's all what investing is. For example, if I go into a neighborhood, I buy a house in a community that's being gentrified, the house is undervalued because somebody doesn't see the potential. So I buy it, I build it up, and I sell it. But in AI, we'll be able to predict out so far that this neighborhood is going to become gentrified. The house value will already be up before I even been able to get in there. So if you take that out and you put it in a worldwide system, there is no room for inefficiencies when AI is able to predict years out ahead and reduce all inefficiency. There's no room to profit no more. Yeah, I mean, traditionally we've been taught through hip hop culture and all this stuff is you want to be the owner. You want to be the man. You want to be the person who owns this company or that company. But a lot of the rich, they figured out ways to control it but not own it. And that's the reason why with stock options and all these other things, you make more money with stock options than you do. If you're able to predict the stock movement and you buy the stock itself, you own part of the company, you make actually less money. If I'm able to predict the stock movement, I bought an option, which means I don't own the stock, but I control the stock. And I've used leverage against that, I can make 10 times more money, but I never actually own the stock. And that same concept can expand out to just overall, economics. Is that a lot of times you could just control something, but you don't own it, and you'll make a lot more money, and you don't have the liability of ownership, the tax burden, the legal liability, and all these other things that come along with owning something. So a lot of the elites don't actually own something, they just control it.
If we look at America, America is graded by its gross domestic product, which is connected to human capital and consumption. A lot of people are consuming more than what they're producing, and it's leaving you dry, right? You are spiritually bankrupt. You're not fulfilled by the things you do because you're doing it for money, not because they align with your morals, values, and principles. So therefore, we have a society that is spiritually robbed, right? We look at the type of things that we're producing today. It's not to increase the quality of life index in the economy where you can build a family, you can enjoy the pursuits of your passions that give you infinite energy while you're doing them because they're good for you and they're good for the world, and you never want to retire for something that you love doing. I think as long as we judge ourselves like we're machines based on how do we get the most efficiency and output, and then we kill our battery power to where we don't have enough energy for our spiritual consciousness at the end of the day, then I think that we'll always have wealthy depression, where you're accumulating these external assets, right? But you're robbing yourself of that internal process, that internal assets, being aligned with self. So as long as we have whenever we get to a place where we have a morally rich society, you'll find more people happy. You'll find more people with a greater quality of life because we will practice conscious capitalism, right? Making money, but doing things for social good. We will have clean technology, right? To where it improves lives. Not these cheap trinkets of things that we have that do parlor tricks that we pay for, that we overconsume, but it's not produce anything in our life. And so I think that we have to shift to holistic wealth, right? Where we're looking at the full picture, not just looking at an aspect of success. The American dream at the core of it was family. And without family, without that connection to other human beings, how can we ever live a life to where we're happy? How can we ever have joy? So let's remoralize society. Let's restructure our idea of success. And we have to put values at the cornerstone of culture. Otherwise, we're not building a world based on God. We're building it based on the devil. The devil will give you what you want, but not what you need.
The 19 keys above 19. The execution of knowledge is power. Teach you how to be a god. From a boy to a man, and ultimately back to the natural state of being and to a god.
Peace, family. The year of the nine. The year of the nine is the year of completion, right? You have to know what to get rid of and what is the new thing that you're going into. As we're going and continuing to a new cycle, what are we going to feed ourselves? People have all these goals, but what's that frequency to match? If you by yourself in this shift on this planet, right, then you need to come together with a community to where you're no longer alone and you're in the right environment. February 7th at the Gramercy Theater is the right environment, where we give you the futurist blueprint, and you're going to be around other people who are dedicating their lives to a higher level. Make sure you come tap in New York, get your tickets, go to 19keys.com/tour, and I want to see you in the VIP section. You can ask whatever question that you want to, so that we can build community. Peace, family. I'm 19 Keys, and I'll see you in New York for the Save Yourself experience. Let's manifest our own destiny.
Ain't nobody gonna save you. You gotta save yourself. You gotta save yourself. Gotta save yourself. Gotta save yourself. Gotta save yourself.
This is the foundation to understand your journey into cryptocurrency. You want to be prepared for the future. And although you can make a lot of money in crypto, you can actually lose a lot as well. If you get it in just for FOMO, you don't have a strategy, you just gambling. This is one of my favorite strategies. But we're in that time where anybody can create their own money and their own economy. That means the corporations and even the banks and the governments themselves are actually jumping into it. This is that time now where you get prepared. You will have the tools to be able to go do this research on your own, find coins on your own, and understand crypto in the way that the big boys do right now. The game is here and it's real. And if you don't play in it, then you're going to be on the sidelines watching everybody else score. And I believe that this is why it's one of the most exciting times in history. If you're smart and you're playing the game.
Unlock infinite wealth strategies at highlevel.19keys.com/IWS.